Chapter 22-29. Chiu Shotsang had never thought that one day he would be exhausted to death by the human wave tactic. If it weren't for the ancient human Shueisha, he was confident that he could still hold on and run away. There might even be a chance to get out. However, as soon as the ancient human Shueisha entered the battlefield, he was completely at a disadvantage. This was the untainted land, a world full of evil qi. This world was full of evil qi. When Shueisha fought with him, Shueisha had the geographical advantage. He had endless replenishment. But not only did he not have any replenishment, his mental energy was also declining. If this dragged on for a long time, wouldn't he be exhausted to death? At this moment, Chiu Shotsang knew that he could not break out of the encirclement of the tormented spirits and Shueisha. In this situation, he knew that there was nothing he could do. Unless a sovereign came in person, no one could save him. However, being trapped here, there was no way to summon a sovereign unless he died and the life tablet was broken. But Chiu Shotsang was not willing to give up. He had never thought that he would die in such a small place. Roar! Chiu Shotsang used his natal star orb to pour out a terrifying attack again, and opened up a path. He was going to struggle one last time. In a moment, Chiu Shotsang had crossed hundreds of millions of miles. Although the Shueisha and a large number of tormented spirits were chasing after him, they were still much slower than him. Suddenly, Chiu Shotsang's heart skipped a beat. He had found a strange place. There was a big cocoon where living creatures were being nurtured. Although the world's origin had been taken away, with Chiu Shotsang's rich experience, how could he not recognize this place? Chiu Shotsang laughed wildly. Ha ha ha! Heaven never bars one's way. In the blink of an eye, Chiu Shotsang arrived at this place. He did not hesitate at all. He directly released a large amount of chaotic energy and even celestial qi. This was similar to using the chaotic energy to enter the primitive graveyard. But this place might be slightly different. The exit might be more obscure. Even Chiu Shotsang was looking for a weak spot in the vast amount of chaotic energy. In the end, he fixed his eyes on a withered wood-like demonic plant. This demonic plant was supposed to be an expert nurtured by the world's origin. But obviously it had not been born successfully. Although he had failed to successfully nurture it, he seemed to have opened up an opportunity to connect with the outside world. Chiu Shotsang made use of this to pierce through the void with a single finger. However, just as half of Chiu Shotsang's body entered the void, a hidden and terrifying power suddenly burst forth from not far away and bombarded his body. Xingyu! Chiu Shotsang roared in disbelief. He didn't know when Xingyu had appeared here, but his body's strength and mental strength had been greatly depleted. Now, he had to face Xingyu's all-out attack. He was unable to retaliate. In fact, he had to rush out of the passageway. Otherwise, if he were to be left behind, he would have no chance of survival against an expert like Xingyu. Roar! Chiu Shotsang used almost all of his strength to maintain the passageway and quickly passed through. The moment Chiu Shotsang appeared in the outside world, he was so moved that he almost cried. Finally, he saw a way out. As expected, the heavens still cared for him. However, he originally thought that without his power to control it, the passageway would collapse. However, he was wrong. There was still a powerhouse like Xingyu behind him. It would not be difficult for him to forcibly surround this passageway. Swish, 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 right behind Xingyu, streaks of light and shadows leaped out of the passageway one after another. Taking a closer look, he saw Xingyu, Shueisha, and a masked man. In a flash, as soon as Xingyu appeared, he struck out with a huge star. On the other side, Shueisha launched an attack. Boundless evil qi condensed into a long river of evil qi. Not to be outdone, the masked man burst out a weird sword aura that was intertwined with immortal spiritual qi and evil qi. Xingyu, you tricked me? Chiu Shotsang roared. He was so weak that he didn't even have 30% of his combat power. How could he face the attacks of the three powerhouses? Only the guy wearing the mask was slightly weaker. Rumble, rumble, Chiu Shotsang's body was mutilated and his soul was weak. Pucci, a crack was squeezed out of the void. Chiu Shotsang was shocked. Wasn't that the entrance to his origin sea? Han Fei drilled in and crazily devoured the energy stored in Chiu Shotsang's origin sea, just like how he absorbed an Taiping. In the outside world, Xing Yu blocked this place. Although an Taiping and Chiu Shotsang were both dead, the follow-up events of the number 3 Land of Revival might be very serious. However, he had gotten rid of 2 powerful enemies after all. Who cared what would happen next? He just had to deal with it. The void was broken, and Han Fei drilled out of Chiu Shotsang's origin sea. When Han Fei raised his hand, Chiu Shotsang seemed to be struggling. Xing Yu's pupils constricted slightly. Is he being controlled? Han Fei was also very excited. He thought he couldn't control Chiu Shotsang. After all, Chiu Shotsang was too strong. However, Chiu Shotsang was too weak at this moment. His origin sea was almost emptied, and he was chased by the evil spirits and ambushed. He was too weak to resist. At this moment, in the void passage, hundreds of evil spirits appeared in a row. Han Fei said, "Keep acting until the end." Han Fei used the great path of time on Chiu Shotsang and disturbed the time at this moment. Xing Yu was speechless when she saw Han Fei's series of tricks. This man had so many tricks and was so cunning. He was definitely an extremely dangerous person. Hum, hum, hum in the know. 3 Land of Revival, Neza, Untufu, and Bai Ranran were fighting fiercely. Neza was stalling for time. Untufu thought that Neza was determined to kill Bai Ranran today because he felt that Neza was very violent. Untufu didn't understand why he didn't cooperate. In fact, it would be a great achievement if he killed either one of them. However, after fighting for a long time, the 3 of them were shocked to find that they couldn't do anything to each other. At this moment, they found that the entire number 3 Land of Revival began to shake as if something big had happened. From afar, they saw a scene that made their hearts tremble. In the eyes of Neza, Bai Ranran, and Untufu, they saw countless skeletons and a human-shaped blood demon chasing Chiu Shotsang and Xing Yu. Besides, it seemed that the 2 of them were heavily injured. In particular, half of Xing Yu's body was gone, and there was a big hole in Chiu Shotsang's chest and abdomen. Hiss! At that moment the 3 of them were all shocked. Only Neza's clone pretended to be shocked. At that moment, they saw the blood fiend cultivator in front of them turn his head and look in their direction. Following that, 3 tormented souls left the group and charged toward Neza's clone. Shoot! Oh no! Neza and Untufu both cried out in shock. At this moment, the battle between them was already meaningless. Almost at the same time, the 3 of them took out teleportation jade slips and teleported back. Hum, 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 because there was still a long distance from the place where they were fighting to the exit. They could reach the heaven opening stage quickly, but not the Pioneer Sea stage. The 3 of them appeared at the exit of the number 3 Land of Revival almost at the same time. At this moment, there was no one here, so the 3 of them could only open the passage with the chaotic energy. Hum! As soon as the passage was opened, a figure suddenly walked out of the void. Yi Fenglu? Bai Ranran was slightly surprised. She didn't expect that Yi Fenglu was still in the number 3 Land of Revival. Neza's doppelganger and Untufu stepped into the tunnel before Bai Ranran did when they saw that there were more people coming. Han Fei, however, said to Bai Ranran, "Something happened. A large group of heaven-opening stage cultivators seems to be chasing the second lord." Bai Ranran thought, Yi Fenglu saw that too. It seems that they came too fast. Bai Ranran said, "Let's go. Let's get out of here first." Outside. As soon as Neza went out, he shouted, "Something happened inside. Lord Xing Yu is being chased." What? What's going on? For a moment, not only Duan Qingxi was shocked, but the experts of the 2 neighboring families also showed up. On the other side, Untufu shouted, "Where is Lord Taiping? Where is Lord Taiping?" An expert of the family immediately stepped out of the void and shouted in a low voice, "Tufu, what happened?" And Tufu said, "Ghost spirits. There are thousands of heaven-opening stage ghost spirit." "What?" In the scavenger city, the expert guarding the graveyard battlefield changed his expression drastically. At this moment, he saw Bai Ranran and Yi Fenglu come out. Bai Dandan said the first thing after she came out, "Lord Purple Cloud, hurry up and save them. The second lord is being chased." Hiss, in the blink of an eye, Duan Qingxi, Purple Cloud, and the expert of the family immediately entered the number 3 land of revival. Cicada, about half an hour after they entered the number 3 land of revival, cicadas chirped in the void, and a horrible pressure descended. It was none other than Unbelan. Before Ntufu and the others had time to talk to Unbelan tore open the entrance to the number 3 land of revival. However, as soon as the entrance was opened, Duan Qingxi carried the heavily injured Xing Yu and dashed out. And Purple Cloud didn't rush out until several minutes later with the badly wounded Qiu Shotsong. Behind them was the expert of the family, but Taiping was nowhere to be seen. Behind the family powerhouse, a blood fiend was leading 700 tormented souls, chasing after them like a madman. "Humph! You're courting death." And Balan made a move and pressed his palm down. The void within 100,000 miles was compressed, and hundreds of ghost spirits were collapsing and exploding. And the leader of the blood demons roared and shouted at Balan, "It's you who destroyed my world. I will come back for revenge." The blood demon, with the power of an emperor, grabbed the long river of evil intent and whipped it at Balan. Everyone was shocked. That was AF** King Emperor. "You're courting death." And Balan pointed a finger at the world, and the void within 100,000 miles collapsed. The entrance to the number 3 land of revival completely collapsed, directly burying more than 700 ghost spirit. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Is this the power of an emperor? Isn't he a bit too strong? The power of a finger could collapse the void within 100,000 miles. Is he still human? But at this moment, Qiu Shotsong, who was next to Purple Cloud, suddenly put his hand on Purple Cloud. At that moment, Purple Cloud felt a fatal crisis. Shotsong. Purple Cloud wanted to run, but Qiu Shotsong stopped him and tried to stop him with a life-risking strike. Bam, bam, bam. At the same time, in the collapsed void, more than 700 ghost spirits, led by Blood Demon, exploded together. The 3 forces were all shocked. For a moment, the void within 1,000,000 miles exploded and was annihilated. Purple Cloud, who was on the scavenger city's side, reached out to protect Han Fei and Bai Ranran, grabbed them, and fled to the rear. When they looked back, the space within 1,000,000 miles was completely annihilated. Only one sentence was left in the void. A forest hoarse voice growled, "I will come back eventually." While everyone was confused, shocked, and horrified, only Xing Yu's eyelids were twitching wildly. That was because he knew that the fallen Xue Shao was merely a fake. But was Purple Cloud tricked? Chapter 2230. Qiu Shotsong attacked in front of everyone, trying to drag Zi Shao, the commander-in-chief of the graveyard battlefield, down with him. Unfortunately, he still underestimated the strength of a master of this level. Although Zi Shao was almost annihilated by the explosion, he still saved a hand. It was hard to imagine that a hand forcibly ripped open the endless void that was about to heal, ran out, and reconstructed its body. It wasn't until Balan arrived in person that everyone learned that Taiping, the top heaven-opening stage master of the primitive city, also died in the number 3 revival land. It could be said that this time, on the surface, the 3 major forces all suffered heavy losses. And the strength of Xing Yu was also adjusted by the primitive city and the scavenger city. After all, when Balan arrived, there were still hundreds of tormented spirits. Even with the strength of an emperor suppressing it, it caused the void within 1,000,000 miles to collapse. The terrifying power directly annihilated the area within 1,000,000 miles of the number 3 revival land. No one knew how long this terrifying cave would last here. The ice above the sea was frozen all the time, as if trying to repair this area of 1,000,000 miles of annihilation. But in this area, the power of the tormented spirit's self-detonation was destroying the ice in this place all the time. Not long after Unveil arrived, the Silent Master and the Emperor of 10,000 Scales arrived one after another. The 3 emperors tore open this land of annihilation and entered the number 3 revival land, but soon came out. After coming out, they directly warned everyone to list this place as a forbidden land. They all knew that the world origin of the number 3 revival land had been taken away. Naturally, they also found the primitive antiquity land and found a large number of battle traces there. According to their estimation, it seemed reasonable for thousands of tormented spirits and a blood fiend whose strength might have reached the edge of the Tao-proving realm to cause such a huge loss. Leaders wouldn't do everything by themselves, so they weren't omnipotent. Without the ability to reverse time, they couldn't see what really happened here. Moreover, Han Fei deliberately changed the time that Qiu Shotsong experienced, blurring that time, so even if the Emperor of 10,000 Scales found Mochi, it would be useless. However, this time, Land of Revival number 3 had suffered too great a loss. Everything seemed like a huge trap. This surprised both Primordial City and Scavenger City. After that, everyone who entered Land of Revival number 3 for the trial would have to undergo a certain amount of investigation and questioning. This is not. Purple Cloud, the highest commander of the scavengers of the primitive cemetery, was meeting Han Fei at this moment. Zishao said, "You were among the last batch to return, and you appeared almost at the same time as Bai Ranran. Tell me, why didn't I summon you back the first time?" "Your Excellency, when I was summoned for the first time, I was at the critical moment of refining the world origin crystal. But even so, I still quickly completed the last part of the refinement and quickly came out of the hidden secret realm. However, as soon as I came out, I saw the scene of Lord Guardian Song being chased. At that time, there was even a heaven-opening stage skeleton coming towards me. So, I decisively crushed the teleportation jade slip." Zishao said, "What a coincidence! How long would it take to refine the world origin crystal? On that day, at that time, you were refining it?" "My lord, it doesn't take long to refine one world origin crystal, but I've refined more than one." "Oh," Zishao said with great interest, "then how many have you refined?" Han Fei casually said, "I've refined 207 in a row." "How many?" Zishao was a little speechless when she heard this number. "Are you King kidding me? Wait, where did you get so many world origin crystals?" Han Fei said, "In the primitive city, I killed 9 people. In the city of wanderers, I killed 7 people, including one with wings. In the third land of revival, I killed 53 sea opening stage creatures. In total, I obtained 207 world origin crystals. That shouldn't be too many, right?" Zishao narrowed her eyes slightly. If what Yi Fenglu said was true, then this guy's strength seemed to have been greatly underestimated. Zishao said, "But most of the world origin crystals are in other people's origin sea. How did you get them? Will those people surrender?" Han Fei was silent for a while, as if he had something to say. Zishao immediately said, "Don't worry. No one who shouldn't know about this will know." Han Fei immediately said, "I have an inherited technique that can allow me to enter the origin sea of the dead. Of course, this ability has its limitations. It consumes a lot of my spiritual power. Every time I use it, my spirit will weaken. So, in this trial, I mainly hunt native creatures. Only when my mental state is at its peak will I hunt enemies." Hearing this, Zishao was tempted. He didn't think that Han Fei was deceiving him, because his soul was always paying attention to Han Fei. If Han Fei's soul state was slightly abnormal, he would notice it. A mere peak stage sea opening stage couldn't escape his eyes at all. Therefore, Han Fei's frank statement made him think that he had confirmed the truth of the matter. The only thing that surprised Zixiao was that it was the first time he had heard of such an inherited technique. It was interesting that a peak stage sea opening stage cultivator could enter other people's origin sea. Generally speaking, the existence of a origin sea was the foundation of a cultivator. If they didn't want to, others couldn't enter and spy on their origin sea. Zixiao asked, "Who have you encountered this time?" Han Fei replied, "Neza, Long Yu, Li Canli, GMO." Han Fei randomly named a group of people. Most of these people had died, except for Neza. You can check it if you have the ability. Anyway, Neza is my clone. Zixiao asked, "You encountered Neza and ran away?" Han Fei replied, "I was injured, so I hid and recuperated for more than 2 months." Zixiao nodded slightly. "Okay. Go ahead. During this period of time, in the next month, you are not allowed to wander around in the camp. When I allow you to leave, you can return to the scavenger city. The City of Wanderers. Somewhere in the secret realm, in Star Jade's origin sea, 90 heavenly talents of the City of Wanderers were released. In addition, there were 309 sea beasts in the sea opening stage, of which 48 had reached the peak stage. And in addition, there were also 4 sea demons in the heaven opening stage. At this moment, most of the sea demons who had left the number 3 revival land were dumbfounded. Those in the sea opening stage didn't dare to move. The clam girl and the emperor jellyfish looked at Star Jade and then at the surrounding environment, not knowing where they were. However, they knew how terrifying the person in front of them was. At the same realm, he could accommodate the 4 of them, but in Star Jade's origin sea, they felt an extremely heavy pressure, even though Star Jade had tried his best not to pressure them. At this moment, next to Star Jade, Duan Qingxi clicked her tongue and said, "You brought back a lot of people. So profitable this time?" The corner of Star Jade's mouth trembled. "Duan Qingxi, don't you have anything to explain to me? Good heavens, didn't you tell me that our City of Wanderers hides the 5th great general?" Duan Qingxi looked at Star Jade strangely. "Who said he is the 5th great general?" Star Jade replied, "Isn't he? Although he hasn't turned into a star yet, his strength is probably no different from that. This time, he has made a great contribution." Duan Qingxi said lightly, "Why do you think so highly of him?" Star Jade felt that something was wrong. "What do you mean?" Duan Qingxi snorted softly. "He is not one of us." Star Jade looked confused. "He was the one who recruited Neza into the heaven-chosen team." Suddenly, Star Jade's heart shook. "Who is he?" Duan Qingxi said, "An arrogant lunatic. Okay, let's not talk about this. Anyway, the gift he gave us this time is a bit big. I guess we have to return some gift." "Return gifts?" Star Jade's eyes widened. "What? In this chaotic wasteland, apart from the 3 major forces, is there a 4th major force?" At this moment, the clam girl said, "This. Senior, may I ask, where is this place? Is the agreement between Brother Ren and us still valid?" Star Jade, "Brother Ren?" Clam girl, "It's Ren Tianfei." Star Jade rubbed his big bald head. Yes, but I need to tell you something about our Wanderer City. Let this Lady Duan Qingxi do it for you." After saying that, Xing Yu rubbed his head and left. He wanted to find the silent ruler to clarify things. He was still mumbling, "What kind of nonsense is this?" After the war, Han Fei still watched the 3 forces fight on the graveyard battlefield as usual. Recently, he had too many things to digest. In the Origin Sea, a huge amount of resources were melting rapidly, and the Origin Sea was being developed. He was also considering that he needed time now. First of all, he saw a speed that surpassed the limit of speed this time. In the last moment, if it weren't for Star Jade, he couldn't have come back so fast. He had to figure out how to surpass the limit of speed. Secondly, he could now see through the natal marks of many people. He didn't know if it was because his spiritual power had exceeded 5 million, but he could see through these pioneer sea realm cultivators at a glance. He could see through them without any reason. Also, he knew that he was far from invincible. In the same realm, 200 or 300 ghost spirits could surround him. Even if he could reverse time, he might not be able to resist them. Fortunately, he had entered Origin Restoration again, so he should be able to fight better than before. Now, he was desperately short of time. Because the Emperor Sparrow swallowed too much evil chi and evil beads, it chose to fall into a deep sleep. When it woke up, it would be almost time to open the sky. There was still a huge gap between his soul power and his physical body, which he needed to make up for. He had obtained so many resources, so it would be best if he could enter Origin Restoration again. He found that the state of Origin Restoration could repair the gap between his soul and his physical body. Although it couldn't be completely repaired, he would be stronger and his foundation would be more solid after returning to Origin Restoration. Han Fei thought of something. This time I'll need 2 or 3 years. I have to find an excuse. While Han Fei was thinking about this, he saw Bai Ranran and Tian Hong walking over. Han Fei turned around and asked indifferently, "What's up?" Bai Ranran asked, "I heard that you have gained a lot this time and will make great progress in the future?" Seeing Han Fei frown, Bai Ranran said, "I belong to the group of people who should know. In this trial, you can join my team and stay by my side." Han Fei thought to himself, "I don't want to stay by your side." However, Han Fei thought of something and asked, "What about the benefits?" Bai Ranran said, "You are qualified to leave the chaotic wasteland with me and go to the Divine Capital Dynasty to meet the heavenly talents of the Sea Realm." Han Fei pretended to be shocked and said after a moment of silence, "I need to cultivate in seclusion now." Bai Ranran said, "You have 5 years, only 5 years." Chapter 2231. 2 years later. In a remote place in the Scavenger Sea area, Han Fei had been cultivating here for 2 years. During this period of time, no one had followed him, and nothing out of the ordinary had happened. It seemed that they were quite confident in him. He didn't know if it was because Zhao Hongwang had given him a blood-devouring pill. But Han Fei didn't dare to be careless. In the past 2 years, he was really in seclusion to balance the gap between his soul power and his physique. For now, the effect was mediocre. Although the two had transformed a lot, too much transformation would also cause his foundation to be unstable. Therefore, in the past 2 years, Han Fei mainly focused on consolidating his foundation and didn't have time to temper his body and explore his many questions about the heaven-opening state. On this day, Han Fei was wondering whether to return to the Origin Sea again, because the large number of resources he obtained from Taiping and Qiu Shotsang that could be used to open up the Origin Sea had been used up. At present, Han Fei's Origin Sea suddenly opened up from 200,000 kilometers to 270,000 kilometers. This was the benefit of countless resources for a late-stage celestial transformation powerhouse. After all, Han Fei won 1,000 consecutive victories in the arena of the Scavenger City and obtained countless energy crystals, but the resources he got were not enough to open up a 10,000-kilometer Origin Sea. And the resources possessed by Taiping and Qiu Shotsang helped him open up a 70,000-kilometer Origin Sea at once. However, this situation couldn't be replicated, and he couldn't casually kill a powerhouse of this level. If it weren't for the siege of thousands of heaven-opening state ghost spirits, if it weren't for the help of the ancient blood devils, if it weren't for the help of the star jade, if it weren't for the special environment of the primitive ancient land, it would have been impossible for him to kill these two people. This also fully showed that there was still a big gap between him and the real powerhouses of the heaven-opening state. And the urgent task to make up for this gap was to open up the Origin Sea. As for how much to open up, Han Fei planned to ask eldest senior brother and the others this time. As for the remaining resources, a large number of materials, treasures, and so on, there was no way to convert them into energy to open up the origin sea. Of course, he would make the best use of them. Some mineral deposits, earth veins, spiritual liquids, and so on were slowly integrated into his origin sea. He wanted to open up the origin sea again, but he felt that it was not worth it for such a small amount of resources. Suddenly, Han Fei felt that the mark of the Void Temple in the depths of his sea of consciousness was triggered. Immediately, Han Fei knew that a new gathering had begun. Because of the limited conditions, Han Fei didn't attend many small gatherings. This time, it was a small gathering. However, in Han Fei's opinion, a small party was almost the same as a centennial party. Small gatherings weren't full. Everyone had things to do, didn't want to come, and didn't have any news to share. In fact, there was no need for them to come. Han Fei patiently rearranged the surroundings and concealed the area. Then, he touched the mark in his mind and opened the Void Gate. Void Mountain. Han Fei now called this place the Void Mountain for convenience. Han Fei was a little late. As soon as he entered the Void Mountain, he looked around and smiled at his senior brothers and senior sisters. Greetings, eldest senior brother Undead, senior brother Azure Dragon, senior sister Green Lotus, senior sister Red Lotus, senior sister Fengyu. This time, only a few people had come. The others were not here. To Han Fei's surprise, Phoenix Feather 11 came. More than 300 years ago, she said she was going to participate in a trial or something, and then she never appeared again. He didn't expect that she would come to this small gathering. After everyone responded, Phoenix Feather 11 said, "Little junior brother, I haven't seen you for 300 years. Do you miss me? Are you still in that shabby place?" Han Fei grinned. "I haven't been in that place for a long time." Phoenix Feather curled her lips. "It's only been more than 300 years. You make it sound like it's been a long time." Han Fei paused. They generally didn't say where they came from or where they were, so Han Fei didn't intend to tell them. The things in the chaotic wasteland might come to an end for the time being. Everything depended on his return from the Divine Capital Dynasty. Azure Dragon asked, 11, are you done with your business?" Phoenix Feather said, "It should have been over long ago, but the East Sea Divine Land is going to hold a super competition every 100,000 years. It looks so interesting. I'm going to join in the fun." Han Fei's heart did a flip. "You're going to?" Immediately, everyone looked at Han Fei. "So, you're going to?" Feng Yu exclaimed, "Little junior brother, you're going to?" "Wait, little junior brother, it hasn't been long since you opened the sky, right? You haven't turned into a star yet. Won't it be dangerous for you to participate in this competition?" Han Fei immediately said with a smile, "Anyway, I'll go first. Besides, my strength is not that bad. If I'm too weak, I'll be a disgrace to the Void Temple." Senior brother Azure Dragon said, "Little junior brother, no matter what, you must be careful." "Thank you for your reminder, senior brother Azure Dragon, but I'm in a special situation now. I'm afraid I have to go on this trip." "Oh." Just when Feng Yu was about to say something, eldest senior brother suddenly said, "Okay, if 11 has anything to say it after the class. Little junior brother's aura is not too stable, and his foundation is slightly disordered. You'd better listen to the class first." Hearing this, everyone seemed to understand that the so-called unstable aura was probably because he improved too fast. The reason why everyone felt that the disciples of the Void Sacred Hall had improved too quickly was because they felt that the disciples of the Void Sacred Hall had improved too quickly. There was no other possibility. In particular, since little junior brother could enter the Void Temple, his foundation couldn't be weak. Thinking that Han Fei was going to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the East Sea Divine Continent, his temporarily unstable aura must be caused by his rapid growth. And the reason why eldest senior brother wanted to lecture first was that his lecture contained the truth of heaven and earth and the aura of the Great Way, which could help Han Fei digest this kind of unstable aura. Feng Yu hurriedly responded, "Yes, eldest senior brother." Han Fei and the others immediately sat cross-legged. After a while, they heard eldest senior brother's lecture slowly. However, Han Fei suddenly discovered one thing, that was, when eldest senior brother lectured before, he always started with the Great Way. But this time, he started with the Heavenly Way. On the contrary, as soon as he said the Heavenly Way, Han Fei felt a little confused and wanted to sleep. Oh no, he wanted to meditate. Vaguely, Han Fei seemed to hear a few words. What is the Heavenly Way? It is a kind of mighty power, the power contained in heaven and earth. The Heavenly Way contains all the Daos in heaven and earth. If you want to use the Heavenly Way, you must borrow the Tao in heaven and earth that suits you. Although Han Fei felt a little confused, his chest was heaving up and down, although he didn't realize it. But somehow, he seemed to have understood some truth of the Great Way. Han Fei's origin sea was faintly touched. While the origin sea was giving birth to the Great Tao, there seemed to be power seeping into it from the star sea, which made Han Fei feel extremely comfortable. It was as if someone was giving him a massage after a long time of exhaustion. Unfortunately, Han Fei felt that this wonderful feeling only lasted for a while before it disappeared. Suddenly, Han Fei heard eldest senior brother's voice in his ears. "Okay, that's all for today's lesson. Little junior brother, how do you feel?" Han Fei immediately checked his personal information, only to see the information in front of his eyes. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 101, sky opening, C 10,000 family tree 200016, chaotic energy 1. 37 million spiritual power, 5461258 perception range 6. 5 million kilometers, power 4582429 waves, first spiritual heritage, primordial vein, second spiritual heritage, vein of eternal darkness, first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 96, second spiritual beast emperor sparrow, level 99, main art, time fishing, level 8 of void fishing, emperor level, divine quality. Huh? All of a sudden, Han Fei released his soul power, and his strength was enhanced again. In the past 2 years of cultivation, he had been trying to balance the gap between his soul and strength. Although he could transform his soul and strength every day. However, just like eldest senior brother, he knew that his aura was unstable the moment he saw him. The rapid transformation came with a price, and he needed time to consolidate this transformation. After all, the soul and the body were two completely different powers. Otherwise, his soul and strength would have been balanced a long time ago. Han Fei was surprised because he knew that he would attend the party today, so he paid attention to the information of his soul power and strength when he came out of seclusion in advance. At that time, his soul power was 5.52 million and his strength was 4.51 million. However, after listening to eldest senior brother's lesson, the two changed. Also, Han Fei sensed that he seemed to have a better control over his power than before. Phew! At least I've saved 100 years of hard cultivation. Han Fei felt that if his foundation was unstable before, it had been stabilized after one lesson. Of course, there was still a long way to go before it was solid. Han Fei knew that eldest senior brother was helping him consolidate his strength a little. As for the future, he still had to rely on himself. Han Fei immediately responded, "Thank you, eldest senior brother. I feel much better. Now it's time to consolidate my foundation." "Okay. That's great." Eldest senior brother didn't talk much, so he asked, "Is there anything you want to discuss?" Han Fei's heart did a flip. He had a lot of questions now, so he had to take this opportunity to ask. Others couldn't even think of such an opportunity. How could he not cherish it? Han Fei said, "Eldest senior brother, I have a question." Eldest senior brother glanced at Han Fei kindly and then nodded. Han Fei immediately said, "Eldest senior brother, I want to know whether the soul and the body must be balanced in order to have a solid foundation." Before eldest senior brother spoke, senior brother Azure Dragon said, "Little junior brother, was your foundation unstable because of this question?" Chapter 2232. Facing senior brother Azure Dragon's question, Han Fei nodded slightly. "It should be. Maybe it's the ownerless soul." As a matter of fact, Feng Yu immediately interrupted, as the saying goes, there's no free lunch in the sky. Ownerless souls are good, but you can't eat them randomly. Look, fortunately, you discovered it early, otherwise it will be troublesome in the future." Han Fei thought, "I know, but I can't tell you that I can forcibly balance the relationship between the two, can I?" Feng Yu answered, "Let me answer this question for you, little junior brother?" Eldest senior brother nodded slightly with a gentle expression. Feng Yu, the talkative Feng Yu, immediately said, "Your guess is actually quite accurate. It's actually very difficult to achieve an absolute balance between the soul and the body, so generally, there won't be an absolute balance. At least there's a relative balance. If the two are almost balanced, your foundation will be considered solid." Han Fei nodded slightly. Sure enough, when the two reached a balance, it could be considered as a real solid foundation. It turned out that his foundation had never been solid before. Feng Yu continued, however, there are some special cases. Some people focus on cultivating their soul so that their soul can leave their body. The strength of their soul is far stronger than that of their body, and the power that erupts from their soul can easily destroy others' souls. There are also some people who walk on the extreme path of body refinement. These people eventually give up their soul and replace it with their will. They walk on the ultimate path of body refinement. Hearing this, Han Fei couldn't help but frown. He had thought about this before. However, he didn't know that the limit of body refinement was to replace the soul with the will. He had always thought that if you didn't have a soul, others could easily kill you with the power of their soul. In contrast, those who only cultivated their soul had a weak body. What could you do when others pierced through your body? Han Fei couldn't help but ask. Then these two people who walk on the extreme path, won't they always be weak in one aspect? Feng Yu yelled, "That's not right. Both of them are very powerful. Don't think that just because you want to walk on the extreme path, you can really walk to the extreme path. This requires talent. Only those who are talented can do this. Moreover, when one's soul was cultivated to the extreme, it was said that it could exist independently of the physical body. To them, creating a physical body was simply too easy. They just needed to pinch it casually, and a physical body would appear. And when the physical body is cultivated to the extreme, it can replace the soul with the will. The physical body can't be destroyed, and the soul is immune to attack. As long as the will exists, even if the physical body is destroyed, they can find the physical body. Let me ask you, is it scary or not?" Han Fei frowned. "Is he so strong?" Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Then aren't those who pursue balance and have a solid foundation weak compared to these two?" Feng Yu, in theory, this type is indeed incomparable to those two types. However, there are also benefits to this. That is, it is not easy to prove one's Tao by taking the extreme path, but this kind of pursuit of balance between the two is relatively easy to prove one's Tao. Han Fei curled his lip. What about fighting? The moment those two kinds of experts arrive, they'll be able to wipe us out with a flip of their hand. Feng Yu scratched her head. That doesn't seem right either. I have met someone who has refined his soul to the extreme. Although his soul is strong, when fighting with him, I can also resist. Han Fei was speechless. Senior sister Feng Yu, are you sure you really understand it thoroughly? Feng Yu blushed and was so anxious that she counted her fingers. Well, by the way, I borrowed the power of the way of heaven. Yes, the power of the way of heaven. Ha ha ha. Senior sister Red Lotus chuckled. Senior brother Azure Dragon, you'd better teach both of them. 11 knows how to use it, but he hasn't understood it thoroughly yet. Senior Brother Azure Dragon glanced at Feng Yu. Last time, I wanted to teach you, but you said you understood it. Is that it? If you don't listen carefully, how can you achieve extraordinary achievements? Listen carefully this time. Okay, Feng Yi felt that she was a little messed up. The problem was with the heavenly Tao. I must have been diverted by some topic previously and forgot to listen. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, Little Junior Brother, the balance between the physical body and the soul, in addition to representing a solid foundation, also represents another thing. What? Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, the degree of compatibility with the way of heaven. Han Fei was shocked. He had never heard of such a statement. What did the degree of compatibility with the way of heaven mean? Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, the extreme Tao, because it is too heaven-defying, is often not tolerated by the way of heaven, and it is extremely difficult to prove one's way. Besides, the extreme Tao is not as Eleven said. The physical body and the soul are completely meaningless. Otherwise, if the extreme Tao of soul refining meets the extreme Tao of body refining, one is immune to the soul and the other has no physical body. One is spiritually immune, while the other doesn't have a physical body. The two of them can't fight at all. They can't even hit each other. Do you think that's possible? Han Fei shook his head. It seems impossible. Even if the two powerhouses don't use their souls and bodies, they should be able to fight each other, right? Senior Brother Azure Dragon nodded slightly. So, the so-called extreme Tao, in fact, does not really abandon the other half, but completely hides the role of the other half. If they really fight, the two can still determine the winner. Because of the particularity of the extreme Tao, it is destined that people who take the extreme Tao are rare in the world. Maybe there are only a few in the entire East Ocean. Besides, not only does the way of heaven not allow the existence of the extreme Tao, but any force, when discovering the extreme Tao, will immediately think of obliterating them. Because once they grow up, they will be completely uncontrollable and can control the world. Therefore, the remaining extreme Tao people are either limited by some people or limited by some seals, restraints, etc. Han Fei frowned. The people who take the extreme Tao seem to be a bit scary. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said again, the extreme Tao is a matter for a few people, and the Tao of balance between the physical body and the soul is a normal Tao. It is the way of heaven and earth, and it is a road that can be connected to the way of heaven. Han Fei frowned. When eldest senior brother was lecturing just now, Han Fei felt that it seemed to be related to the way of heaven. Then, when the lecture was over, he realized that this lecture was equivalent to hundreds of years of training his foundation. Even his divine soul and physical body had achieved a corresponding balance. Han Fei frowned. Can the extreme Tao not connect to the way of heaven? Senior Brother Azure Dragon was silent for a while. He was not a god. This question was too far away. Eldest Senior Brother slowly said, once, someone became a god with the extreme Tao, and he alone could suppress the universe. The road is open. It's extremely difficult to leave. Able to suppress the universe? Eldest Senior Brother's words shocked everyone, including Senior Brother Azure Dragon. They all seemed to be imagining how strong that person must be to get such an evaluation from Eldest Senior Brother. However, Eldest Senior Brother immediately said, the way of balance, there used to be a god with the extreme Tao. Wow. Suddenly, there was another shocking thunder. Just now, Han Fei and the others were envious of the power of the extreme Tao. But now it seemed that the way of balance was not weak at all. The fire that had just been ignited in Han Fei's heart was immediately extinguished by eldest senior brother's words. Han Fei thought to himself, anyway, according to Senior Brother Azure Dragon, there are too few people who take the extreme Tao, so few that there may only be one or two in the East Ocean Divine Land. Besides, if he is found out, he will be hunted down and restricted, so he might as well take his own way of balance. The way of balance may have to live for 1,000 years, but if he took the extreme Tao, he would have to live for a long time. Eldest senior brother said, Azure Dragon, continue. Senior brother Azure Dragon roared, oh. The reason why the way of balance that eldest senior brother mentioned just now will be very strong in the end is because 11 said that it can borrow the power of the way of heaven, but 11 doesn't know it very well. Azure Dragon hovered in the void, his voice shaking. In this world, in theory, there is no absolute balance at all. There can only be extreme balance. When the soul and the body become more and more balanced, the body and mind become one. It can be said that with a single thought, everything can be created. This is the power of balance given by the way of heaven. When you are in the situation of the way of balance, you can understand more, and you can borrow the power of heaven and earth. How much you can borrow depends on how much you understand this way. Of course, you can also use the way of balance to verify your way with the help of the way of heaven. This is also the reason why the growth of the way of balance is simpler, more natural, and more reasonable than that of the extreme Tao. Wow! Han Fei secretly took a breath. Hearing senior brother Azure Dragon's words, he seemed to understand something. In fact, when the demon purification pot could transform between the two powers, he actually mastered a treasure of heaven and earth. Others might not be able to achieve balance, but he had the demon purification pot, so he just needed to transform back and forth. Although this kind of transformation would take time to consolidate, once the two were balanced, he could borrow the power of the way of heaven, and then his strength should immediately improve a lot, right? Han Fei thought about it, but he didn't want to continue asking, because this was not something that could be achieved in a short time. He had to go to the Divine Capital Dynasty in a few years, and in the remaining years, even if he spent all his time cultivating in the Origin Sea, he could at most consolidate his foundation and strengthen his cultivation. Han Fei said, Thank you, eldest senior brother Azure Dragon, for answering my questions. Feng Yu immediately said angrily, Don't forget me. Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at her, but on the surface he still said, Thank you, senior sister Feng Yu. Senior sister Feng Yu, there is still one thing I don't understand, and I have to ask you. Feng Yu immediately raised her head slightly. Humph, you are sensible. Tell me. Han Fei immediately grinned and said, Senior sister, do you know what speed corresponds to after the extreme speed? Chapter 2233. Feng Yu exclaimed, You've already seen superluminal speed? Faster than light? Han Fei thought to himself, so this place is also called faster than light. I thought there would be some special name here, but I didn't expect it to be so uncreative. Han Fei nodded slightly. Yes. Feng Yu immediately said, You have to ask senior brother Azure Dragon and senior sister Kagura. Senior brother Lei Heng is also fine, but he is not here today. Senior brother Azure Dragon smiled and said, This question is relatively broad. Before I tell you part of the answer, tell me first, how fast do you think you can go? Han Fei frowned. How can I guess? He had always thought that after people reached the speed of light, they couldn't go any faster. At the beginning, Han Fei even felt that his old idea was right. He thought that once the speed reached the speed of light, time would be reversed. But in fact, this was not the case. He had mastered the Tao of time, so he was not afraid to enter the river of time. Therefore, when his speed reached the speed of light for the first time, he only knew that a few choices appeared in front of him. One of them could be understood as the Sea of Stars. And the river of time was not included in Han Fei's list, because when the speed reached the speed of light, he could indeed enter the river of time. However, in addition to the Sea of Stars and the river of time, there was a white hole and a staircase at the place where the speed of light was. This was what he wanted to know. He felt that the reason why he could surpass the speed of light was related to these two. However, senior brother Azure Dragon asked him how fast he could go. Han Fei felt that this question seemed a bit wrong. In his original impression, There were many powers beyond the speed of light. Although they were all guesses, Senior Brother Azure Dragon had guessed them. For example, warp drive, gravitational wave, space jump, wormhole, quantum entanglement, space folding, etc. Han Fei pondered for a moment. Speed. As long as there is enough kinetic energy, it can be infinitely accelerated, right? Senior Brother Azure Dragon. Senior Brother Azure Dragon seemed to be looking at Han Fei through the void. Little Junior Brother, if you say so, we can't talk about this topic anymore. Han Fei immediately grinned and estimated conservatively. His speculations were all far faster than the speed of light. However, he couldn't boast in this place, so Han Fei said, I have two guesses. One is that the speed is constantly increasing on the basis of the speed of light, not doubling. The other was similar to a kind of space jump. Just like the heaven and earth great shift, it could ignore space and time and jump from one place to another. Of course, there is no concept of speed. The eldest senior brother couldn't help but look at Han Fei gently. Feng Yi said in surprise, Little Junior Brother, you're more daring than me. You don't even want space and time anymore. Senior Sister Red Lotus giggled. Little Junior Brother's way of thinking is indeed quite peculiar. Senior Sister Green Lotus. The direction is correct. After a moment of silence, Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, The latter you mentioned can be done, but it's still too far away from you. For now, just try your best to stick to the first idea. Han Fei thought to himself, I haven't mentioned wormholes yet. However, it seems to be a breakthrough to be able to continuously accelerate on the basis of the speed of light. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, Except for those with speed talent, most people have to comprehend faster than the speed of light after turning into a star. Although many people also want to comprehend it before turning into a star. But they are usually limited by one situation. Han Fei. Senior Brother Azure Dragon explained, That is because their physique is not strong enough to bear the power of faster than the speed of light. After turning into a star, the Great Way is connected to the Heavenly Way. This is the basic requirement. When part of your Great Way becomes the Heavenly Way, you can ignore your own existence and only consider the speed. Han Fei was a little confused, but he finally understood that when the Great Way was integrated into the Heavenly Way acquiesced that you were a part of the Heavenly Way. If you were the Heavenly Way, the Heavenly Way wouldn't care about you anymore. Han Fei frowned. Gosh, this is like cheating. I've become the Heavenly Way, an invisible and intangible thing. Does the speed limit have anything to do with me? Han Fei nodded again and again. Seeing that Han Fei didn't ask any more questions, Senior Brother Azure Dragon continued. In this case, there are many forces that can be accelerated. For example, if you walk the space Tao, you can directly distort the space and use the space thrust to accelerate. For example, if you walk the speed Tao, you can directly use the speed law in the Heavenly Way to boost your speed. For example, if you walk the gravity Tao, you can directly use the mutual repulsion of the two force fields to accelerate. As for which is faster, you have to try to learn to make more use of your Tao. Han Fei asked, That's it? Han Fei thought, Why didn't you mention white holes and stairs? Senior Brother Azure Dragon explained, This is the first method that can surpass the speed of light, and it is also a method that can be used by ordinary people in the heaven opening state. But this method, generally speaking, is only within 10 times the speed of light. And they all have a prerequisite, that is, you have to truly integrate into the Heavenly Way first. Han Fei asked, Is there a second way to increase speed? Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, Don't be too ambitious. This should be a power that will only be involved after turning into a star. You've only opened the sky for a few hundred years. Unless your origin sea turns into a star, you should be far from being involved in this power now. Han Fei asked, Senior Brother Azure Dragon, is it really okay to completely integrate one's Tao with the Heavenly Way? Senior Brother Azure Dragon nodded. When you understand what the heavenly way is, you can solve this problem yourself. Han Fei asked, Senior Brother Azure Dragon, under normal circumstances, when is it appropriate for a heaven-opening state to turn into a star? The larger the origin sea, the more resources it needs. But if the resources are endless, won't I never be able to turn into a star? Eldest Senior Brother said, When it's time to turn into a star, you will understand it. Little Junior Brother, your current problem is too far away from you. It's time for you to try to cross the origin sea and enter the star sea. Suddenly, Han Fei's heart trembled. He had never thought about stepping into the star sea. Although the star sea had been opened up for a long time, he hadn't even dealt with the origin sea yet. How could he have time to study the star sea? But now Eldest Senior Brother interrupted him and asked him to enter the star sea. Was there the answer he wanted in the star sea? Immediately, Han Fei cupped his hand. Yes, Eldest Senior Brother, I will try to enter the star sea when I get back. At this point, Han Fei no longer asked questions, even though he still had a lot of questions. However, everything had to be done step by step. If it weren't for this trip to the number 3 Revival Land, he would not have thought of asking these questions for the time being. Feng Yu said, That's right, little Junior Brother, you haven't gone deep into the sea-opening realm yet. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many questions. So, do you have any information to share? Let me say first, I encountered a prehistoric ferocious beast on the way from the South Sea Divine Land to the East Sea Divine Land. Senior Sister Azure Lotus asked, Did the prehistoric ferocious beast start to walk into the world? Feng Yu said, I don't know. After a fight, that guy ran away. But recently, because of the 10,000-year competition of the East Sea Divine Land, other things don't seem to attract much attention. Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, The Black Dragon of the Dragon Clan hasn't been killed yet. I don't know where he is hiding. He is not weak. If you meet him, be careful. World of Green Lotus asked, Not many people came this time, so we have nothing to say. Little Junior Brother, do you have anything to say? Since you are going to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the Divine Capital Dynasty, you should be in the East Sea Divine Land, right? Han Fei thought for a while and said, I can deal with things here by myself for the time being. Well, I met a person named Emochi. This person walks the Tao of Time. I feel that she has tested me. I suspect that she has something to do with the Temple of Time. Temple of Time. Azure Dragon said solemnly, Did she invite you to join the Temple of Time? Han Fei shook his head. Not yet, but I guess it's possible. She doesn't know my true identity. Feng Yu said in surprise, You just entered the Sea Realm and you already met people from the 3 divine temples? What a coincidence. Han Fei shrugged. I'm not sure. At this time, Eldest Senior Brother said, Let nature take its course. Don't join them easily. Han Fei nodded. Since he didn't want to tell others about the chaotic wasteland for the time being, he wanted to solve it himself. This was also a trial that Han Fei gave himself. Of course, the starting point of the trial was a bit high, but it would take him a long time. As Senior Brother Azure Dragon said, it had only been 300 years since he entered the heaven-opening realm, and there were still too many things he didn't know. He hadn't even been to the Star Sea. For a period of time in the future, what he needed to do was sharpen himself, polish himself, consolidate his foundation, study speed, cultivate his body, and pursue balance. When Han Fei thought about it, he suddenly had a headache. None of these seemed to be completed overnight. Sure enough, the heaven-opening realm still had a long way to go. He could only do it step by step. Feng Yu said, Little Junior Brother, I will also go to the 10,000-year competition. When the time comes, Senior Sister will bring you to eat delicious food and drink spicy drink. The corners of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Thank you, Senior Sister. Eldest Senior Brother nodded. Okay, that's all for today. Let's go. Chapter 2234. After the party, Han Fei felt much more at ease. Because at this party, He knew that he could actually achieve the way of absolute balance. He hadn't pursued it before, but now it was time to pursue it. Of course, before pursuing this way of absolute balance, he had to go to the Star Sea. In the Origin Sea, Han Fei looked up. Although he had the Star Sea domain map, that thing didn't correspond to the current Star Sea. Besides, the old turtle had said before that the Star Sea couldn't be entered casually because it was also very dangerous. Therefore, Han Fei hadn't been there for a long time. But now, there seemed to be some secrets in the Star Sea that he had to explore. With a thought, Han Fei appeared on the edge of the Star Sea. This was his Origin Sea. As long as he was within the range of the Origin Sea, he could go anywhere he wanted with just a thought. Han Fei thought that he only needed to take one step to enter the Star Sea. However, when he took this step, he suddenly realized that he seemed to have fallen into a quagmire that was full of resistance. Although the Sea of Stars was right in front of him, this was the first time he realized that there was an invisible barrier between the Origin Source Sea and the Sea of Stars. This quagmire felt like a kind of gravitational space, but also like a kind of suppression from the power of the heavenly way. Anyway, Han Fei felt that his blood was boiling and his power was about to burst out. It wasn't until Han Fei showed 80% of his power that he felt he could rush over. However, when Han Fei realized that he could leave this quagmire, he immediately gave up, because he suddenly found that this quagmire was an excellent place for body tempering. The void body tempering technique was about tempering the body with the collapsing power of the endless void. And in this quagmire, Han Fei knew that it was no longer within the scope of the Origin Sea. Because he found that the time acceleration effect here was more than half that in his Origin Sea. The only good thing was that this place was affected by the Origin Sea and time acceleration. Since it was not completely his Origin Sea, he could cause the void to collapse. But in fact, it was difficult for even Han Fei to break out of here. To cause the void to collapse, it required a lot of power. Han Fei could understand that this quagmire might be to protect the experts who had just entered the sky opening state. Don't think about running to the Sea of Stars or you might die there. If you have the ability, you should be able to easily pass through this quagmire first. Han Fei was not in a hurry to enter the Sea of Stars. Anyway, he already had a direction. Buzz, when Han Fei manipulated the void, the terrifying power penetrated the quagmire, like a drop of water hitting the calm surface of a lake, setting off ripples. Where the drop of water fell, it formed an impact beam, and the center of the beam was the connection point between the endless void and the quagmire. At that moment, the raging power seemed to be tearing Han Fei's flesh and blood apart. Han Fei sensed that there seemed to be infinite Tao between heaven and earth attacking him. The golden jade marrow in his bones began to tremble. A massive amount of primal chaos chi flowed into his body. Yin-yang millstone. Han Fei quickly urged Little Black and Little White to activate the yin-yang millstone. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his body refining speed was 10 times, 100 times faster than before. Han Fei thought that something like the golden jade marrow was too difficult to cultivate. According to the usual speed, it might take 100,000 years to fill his body with the golden jade marrow. But now it seemed that maybe because of the major breakthrough in his strength, or because of the Star Sea quagmire, or both, Han Fei activated the void body refining art and his speed sword. At this speed, it might only take him 1 or 2,000 years to complete the refining of the golden jade marrow. At that time, his physical body would experience another leap in quality. Unfortunately, this Star Sea quagmire was not completely within the scope of the Source Sea, so the effect of time acceleration was greatly reduced. As for how much time acceleration was here, he had to test it first. So, a few months later, Han Fei sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that the time acceleration here would be so slow. It was only 8 times faster. In other words, even if the effect of the void body refining art was dozens or hundreds of times better, it would still take 200 or 300 years for him to fill his body with the golden jade marrow. Han Fei thought to himself, anyway, before the divine capital dynasty's grand competition of 10,000 years, there was no hope for me to improve my body because there was not enough time. That was why Han Fei only cultivated in this star sea quagmire for a year to make himself more adapted to the resistance in the quagmire, and then he broke through the quagmire and entered the star sea. Pop, when Han Fei broke out of the quagmire for the first time and set foot in the star sea, he felt as if he had burst a bubble. As soon as he entered the star sea, Han Fei felt extremely cold, piercing to the bone. Han Fei was speechless. This place seemed to be very suitable for practicing the void body refining art. Han Fei could feel a large amount of mixed chaotic energy in the star sea. In the boundless silence, Han Fei could also feel that there was an invisible force in the star sea that was pulling his Tao. In addition to these two feelings, Han Fei felt that there was an inexplicable pressure on his soul. There was a force trying to touch his soul, making him have a feeling of wanting to sleep. Hiss! The endless void? Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He had felt a stronger feeling than this before. Over there was the endless void. When he was in the Pioneer Sea realm, Han Fei had entered the endless void. At that time, he really fell asleep and was saved by Master Beast King. That kind of impression was indelible. Although he had now opened the sky, he still couldn't forget that feeling. He felt that if he stayed in the star sea for a long time, he might also fall into a deep sleep like he did in the endless void. Han Fei looked back at his origin sea, which was already blurred, as if it was shrouded in a layer of mist. No wonder they say that the star sea is dangerous. I've just come out, but I already feel so dangerous. If I really travel to the depths of the star sea, what if I can't find my way back? At this moment, Han Fei didn't dare to be too far away from his origin sea. He carried out a total of 4 experiments in the star sea. One was to practice the void body refining art. After several months of confirmation, Han Fei found that the speed of cultivation in the star sea was more than 10 times faster than in the sea realm. However, it was slower than in the quagmire. The reason was that the quagmire was affected by the origin sea and there was time acceleration. In the star sea, he couldn't accelerate time, so body refining here was slower than in the quagmire. The second experiment was naturally to practice the void sky observation technique. It didn't take a month. In a few days, Han Fei could confirm that practicing the void sky observation technique in the star sea could help him better understand the heavenly way. He could even capture all the great Daos he had walked in the star sea. Then, Han Fei discovered one thing, that was, the star sea was full of heavenly way. He wanted to integrate with the heavenly way, so cultivating in the star sea was the most suitable. The speed was 10 times faster than in the sea realm. The third experiment was to integrate with the heavenly way. The prerequisite for superluminal speed was that he needed to use the power of the heavenly way. And the prerequisite for using the power of the heavenly way was that he needed to integrate with the heavenly way. Fundamentally speaking, this was the real integration of nature and man. Han Fei integrated the great Tao of gravity and the great Tao of space. For Han Fei, it wasn't difficult to integrate with the heavenly way. The true meaning of return to origin was to integrate heaven and earth into one. All he needed to do was to return the great Tao to the heavenly way. When Azure Dragon told Han Fei all this, Han Fei already knew the way to cultivate faster than light. At this moment, with the help of anti-gravity, Han Fei's speed soared again. When the speed exceeded the critical point of the speed of light, the white holes and stairs that Han Fei saw disappeared. What was left were illusory void lines. This was just like when Han Fei escaped from the void for the first time. It could also be compared to a void light explosion cloud similar to a sonic boom cloud. 2 years later, in a certain star sea, there was an irregular distortion in the void, but there was no light or shadow. When the distorted void disappeared, a figure appeared above the hazy fog. It's time to go out, but the time is too short. At present, I can only reach 3 times the speed of light. The Emperor Sparrow's voice sounded. That's not bad. According to my inherited memory, there are very few people who can surpass the speed of light before turning into a star. Even after turning into a star, not everyone can master the speed of light. Han Fei said, however, I didn't expect you to be able to open a sky in the star sea. This is a big discovery. If everyone can open a sky in the star sea, they won't be disturbed at all, right? The Emperor Sparrow said, Not all creatures can open a sky in the star sea? The heavenly tribulation in the star sea is stronger than that in the sea realm. Just like your origin sea is separated from the star sea by a layer of quagmire, the sea realm is also separated from the star sea by such a layer of quagmire. When the power of the heavenly tribulation arrives in the sea realm, it will be weakened because of the quagmire. Therefore, most people who can open a sky in the sea realm will not choose to open a sky in the star sea. Han Fei scoffed. You're just saying that you're strong. The Emperor Sparrow held his head high and snorted. That's the truth. If you can prove your Tao in the star sea, you will find that people like the Emperor of 10,000 Scales are nothing. Chapter 2235. The Emperor Sparrow made it sound easy, but Han Fei knew very well how difficult it was to create a new world in the star ocean. If the Emperor Sparrow hadn't been born to be an emperor, it would have been killed in the star ocean. Even though it was an Emperor Sparrow, this was the most miserable time that Han Fei had ever seen it. It was a purple-red heavenly tribulation. Normal people couldn't withstand 2 of them. In the past 3 years, Han Fei didn't fall asleep, but he could feel that it wasn't time yet. However, he could sense that it was just not time yet. If he had another 3 years, he might not be able to hold on any longer and would want to sleep in the sea of stars. Therefore, the star ocean and the endless void had a lot in common. At least, both could make people fall asleep. However, as he became stronger and stronger, he could resist the power that made people sleepy. With Han Fei's current strength, he could stay in the star ocean for 3 to 5 years. If he really stayed for 30 to 50 years, he would probably fall asleep and drift in the star ocean. However, in any case, after 5 years of seclusion, Han Fei's combat power was no longer what it used to be. At this moment, Han Fei even felt that even if he didn't use the Tao, he might be able to become one of the top 10 lords. Before returning to the Scavenger City, Han Fei secretly went to White Jade City No. 68 and took Zhang Daqian's clone with him. Now, Neza had cultivated for more than 300 years, and so had Zhang Daqian. Neza had rich combat experience and had been in the graveyard battlefield for more than 300 years, so he was comparable to the top heavenly talents in the chaotic wasteland. And Zhang Daqian was already a top heavenly talent. Zhang Daqian walked the giant beast divine Tao, and now his body was already more than 500 kilometers long. The characteristics of the undying devil barrier bloodline far surpassed Neza's body. It relied on its natural instincts such as regeneration, self-healing, unloading, and devouring the soul. It could be said that it was almost impossible to kill Zhang Daqian's clone in the same realm. Besides, with Zhang Daqian's Tao of Nirvana, if anyone could kill him, he would have to thank them for giving him a chance to be Nirvana. Of course, with Han Fei's resource collection ability. At least for now, the resources for Zhang Daqian's first Nirvana were completely enough. However, although the resources were ready, Zhang Daqian hadn't reached the time for Nirvana yet. Han Fei estimated that Zhang Daqian's first Nirvana rebirth might be in the heaven opening state. Of course, if he could find someone stronger than Zhang Daqian on this trip to the Divine Capital Dynasty and kill him, Han Fei felt that it would be a good choice. Scavenger City. When Han Fei returned to the Scavenger City, the people in the city were no different from usual. After Han Fei came back, he went straight to where Emochi was. Now, he had nothing to worry about. Emochi was a special existence in Scavenger City. Moreover, with the previous experience of Emochi looking for him, under normal circumstances, others would not feel that there was anything wrong with him taking the initiative to look for her. However, as soon as Han Fei arrived, he found that there were many young talents waiting in line outside Emochi's residence. Han Fei didn't release his perception, so he didn't know what these people were doing around Emochi. The point was that none of these people was weak. From their aura, Han Fei could see that all of them could enter the internal camp and would definitely rank high. Because Han Fei had always been low-key, when he first came, he didn't attract the attention of others. Everyone was waiting in line. Many people were even followed by their entourage. A few of them even had heaven-opening state powerhouses following them. They are all rich second generations. At this moment, someone frowned and said, "How long do we have to wait? It's been 3 days. Isn't this person too arrogant?" Someone snorted coldly. "Butler, do I have to wait for this person? Can't we invite her to our home?" The butler laughed. "Oh, little ancestor, under normal circumstances, we can't invite her." The young man asked, "Even the Zhou family can't invite her?" A woman glanced at him. "Zhou Bo, no one will think you are mute if you don't speak. Even your father has to wait in line here. Who do you think you are?" The man who was scolded by the woman was furious. "Panning, what do you mean? Is it my business to talk to you? Who cut the line just now?" The woman named Panning said coldly, "Are you going to take this position back?" "Humph." Zhou Bo snorted and didn't speak again. The Pan family was the top family in the Scavenger City. It was impossible for him to take her position. Otherwise, he wouldn't be embarrassed later. Someone lowered his head and sneered. "Useless." Panning scared him with just one sentence. "Do you still want to leave a name in the 10,000-year competition? Dream on." When Zhou Bo heard this, he was about to explode in anger when he suddenly heard a clear voice coming from the house. "Come in." Immediately, all the young talents in line were refreshed. Panning immediately straightened up, thinking that it had been 3 days. This person was finally in a good mood and began to receive guests. Panning got up and walked out of Emochi's residence. She had only taken 10 steps when an invisible force pushed her back. "If it's not you, why are you walking?" "Panning." Panning was dumbfounded. "I'm the first in line. Who else could it be but me? Isn't it first come, first served?" At this time, Panning couldn't help but look back, and then she saw that everyone was looking back and looking around. Until they saw at the end of the line, well, to be precise, hundreds of kilometers away from the line, an alien powerhouse carrying a knife and covered in red scales slowly walked over. Han Fei had disguised himself as his ancestor twice, and his red scales had become his trademark. Therefore, when the children of the big clans looked over, they immediately remembered that this was Yi Fenglu. Under normal circumstances, the children of the big clans wouldn't enter the law enforcement camp. Those who entered the law enforcement camp, even if they were from the internal camp, were generally not the core children of the big clans. Because those real core children didn't need to fight randomly in the graveyard battlefield like most people. They had a solid family background, enough secret realms to challenge, and even controlled the primitive graveyard and the land of recovery. Anyway, they had plenty of places and resources to provide for the consumption of the core children. At this moment, such a group of core children, looking at Han Fei, were surprised at first, and then they all cast unfriendly looks at him, and some looked indifferent as if looking at a dead man. Han Fei was in a hurry and had no time to waste here. He came to see Emochi for the last time because he wanted to see if his ally had any special information for him before he set off. So, in front of so many children of the big clans, Han Fei walked forward indifferently. Until Zhou Bo took a step forward and blocked in front of Han Fei. The corners of Zhou Bo's mouth curled up and he sneered. "Senior Emochi, first come, first serve. This person is the last in line." Don't we have an explanation? Emochi didn't respond, and Han Fei said indifferently, "Get out of the way." Zhou Bo asked, "Do you know who you are talking to?" Han Fei's eyes turned cold, and an invisible killing intent burst out. Zhou Bo was startled by the sudden burst of killing intent and subconsciously took a step back. But then he felt ashamed. As a member of the Zhou family, how could he be intimidated by someone with a glance? No, if I can't get back at him today, how can I maintain my prestige in the future? Suddenly, Zhou Bo's face became gloomy. "I'll give you a chance. Walk from in front of me to the end of the line, and I won't embarrass you today." Idiot! Han Fei didn't even look at him. His figure flashed, and he was about to pass directly. But Zhou Bo's strength was not weak either. He immediately intercepted Han Fei, and this attack was not an ordinary one. He directly shot a spike at the back of Han Fei's head. Someone was surprised. "Soul-fixing spike? Are you going to kill people in the city?" Swish-clang at that moment, no one saw it clearly. They only saw a flash of white light. The next moment, the steward of the Zhou family, who was watching this scene, suddenly changed his face and reached out to block it. Puff! In the blink of an eye, the soul-fixing spike was already in Han Fei's hand. And Zhou Bo, who was about to attack, stretched out one hand, but then his body, starting from the center of his eyebrows to his lower abdomen, was directly divided into two halves. His whole body was instantly cut off, and the two fingers of the steward of the Zhou family were directly cut off. Wow! So fast. Oh my God, he cut off Steward Zhou's fingers? This Yi Fenglu is stronger than the rumors say. Damn, no wonder this kid can enter by Ranran's first squad. Wow! This kid is quite arrogant. I really want to kill him. For a moment there was a lot of discussion. Pan Ying's heart skipped a beat. The knife just now was so fast that even she could barely see the shadow of the knife. Such a knife, she felt that she might not be able to block it. This Yi Fenglu was indeed much stronger than the rumors said. Han Fei didn't stop, but Steward Zhou snorted coldly. Asshole, stop. Regardless of whether Han Fei agreed or not, Steward Zhou was about to reach out to grab Han Fei. However, suddenly, a blue light barrier appeared. Steward Zhou was shocked and wanted to withdraw his hand, but one of his hands was completely rotten. He wanted to regrow his hand, but to his horror, he found that his hand couldn't be regrown. It seemed to be completely separated from him. An arrogant snort came out. Now anyone dares to be presumptuous in front of my house? Kneel there. Steward Zhou was shocked. He didn't want to kneel, but he still felt the power of time on his wrist. He was sure that if he didn't kneel, he would die today. Plop! Immediately, Steward Zhou knelt on the ground, not daring to say a word. At this moment, the children of the big clans were all shocked. Is this person inside so strong? So arrogant? Han Fei continued forward. When he passed by Pan Ying, the latter suddenly said, "Yi Fenglu." Han Fei stopped and tilted his head. "You also want to stop me?" Pan Ying shook her head slightly and said lightly, "I'm Pan Ying. Let's get to know each other." Han Fei raised his eyelids and looked straight ahead. He didn't stop at all, as if he had never stopped at all. After Han Fei passed by Pan Ying, an indifferent voice replied, "Not interested." Pan Ying, The Rich Second Generations. Chapter 2236. F***CK, I'm going to teach him a lesson when I get back. Zhou Bo didn't repair his body until he walked into Mo-Chi's house. He didn't even look at Butler Zhou, who was kneeling on the ground and cursed at Mo-Chi's house. What the F***ck are you talking about? You're just a F***king B** starred. Bam! Without saying a word, a slap came out of nowhere and directly smashed half of Zhou Bo's body. Bastard, you unfilial son, go home and kneel. You don't have to go to this major competition. The newcomer looked dignified, and many of the children here couldn't help but be cautious when they saw him. Isn't this Zhou Liheng, the current leader of the Zhou family? Zhou Bo was still dumbfounded. At this moment, he saw his father cupping his hands at the house. Fairy Emochi, my son is not sensible and has offended you. I'll take him back now and discipline him. As for the butler, you can make him kneel for as long as you want him to. Dad. What are you? Shut up. Jobo didn't dare to speak at all. However, the next sentence caused the face of the fourth-ranked lord to turn ashen. A voice came from the house. Zhou Liheng, you'd better have another child. I've calculated for this child. He doesn't have much luck, and there will be a big tribulation within 1,000 years. Even if he survives this tribulation, there will be another one. In short, he won't live more than 3,000 years and will definitely die. Zhou Liheng's face was livid, and his eyelids trembled a few times. I gave birth to a useless child? Even though Zhou Liheng thought his son was not bad, he didn't dare to doubt Emochi's words. Even an emperor had to ask her for help, and it seemed that she didn't need to deceive his son. She still had to stay in the scavenger city for a long time. 1,000 years was just a snap of the fingers. Why did she have to deceive him? Suddenly, Zhou Liheng's eyes turned cold. How could he have given birth to such a stupid son? With such a personality, it would be difficult for him to live to 3,000 years old. Zhou Bo had just recovered, and when he heard Emochi's evaluation of him, he was anxious. Dad, don't listen to her, smack. Zhou Liheng sent a backhand slap across Zhou Bo's face. Zhou Bo's body flew out like a cannonball. Zhou Liheng cupped his hands towards Emochi, then turned around coldly. From today onwards, you are no longer the young master of the Zhou family. All resources of the family will be cut off from you. Go out on your own. Come back if you can live past 3,000 years old. Zhou Bo. All the core disciples. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Pan Ing was dumbfounded. They knew that Lord Emochi was not to be trifled with and had to be respected. That was why he waited in line for 3 days. However, they didn't expect this master to be so terrifying that he could even tell live. Just look at the Zhou family head's reaction. Because of a single sentence from Emochi, Zhou Bo's future was directly taken away. The dignified young master of the Zhou clan was directly demoted to a mortal. Who could accept this? Most importantly, Zhou Liheng's reaction seemed to clearly tell them the weight of this person's words. Immediately, everyone became respectful again. They did not want to become the next Zhou Bo. At the same time, they also realized that the identity of the so-called core disciples of the family was not as high as they thought. There were still many people who could ruin your fate with a single glance. In Emochi's room, Han Fei sat lazily on a chair. You were ruined by a single sentence? Emochi said angrily. I didn't lie. That person's luck is not good. He really can't live past 3,000 years. Han Fei asked, look at these people. Which one has good luck? Emochi shrugged. I don't want to see. Although she said that she didn't want to look, Emochi took a few glances at them. Then, she had an idea. Are they all short-lived? With that, Emochi couldn't help looking at Han Fei, his eyes shining. Han Fei asked, why are you looking at me? What does it have to do with me? Aren't they going to participate in the 10,000-year competition? They live like princes every day. When they get there, they will fight to the death. All the heavenly talents of the entire East Ocean Divine Continent will gather there. I think it's a miracle that they don't die. Emochi frowned. What did you explain? Han Fei asked. Did I explain? Emochi scoffed. You talk a little too much today. Han Fei's face suddenly tightened. Mainly, I want to meet your ally. After looking at Han Fei for a moment, Emochi suddenly said, I don't know why, but I suddenly feel that you are the original body. Han Fei asked me. Emochi suddenly smiled. Don't pretend. You've exposed yourself. You actually deceived me. I even thought you were an incarnation. Men nowadays are very bad. Han Fei frowned. How could I be the original body? Emochi scoffed. Humph. Don't deny it. You have sealed the great path of time, right? So, when I kissed you just now, I sensed it through deep physical contact. Han Fei was confused. Emochi asked, don't you know that when two people of the same great path come into physical contact, they will sense each other? Han Fei was dumbfounded. When did you kiss me? Emochi said, you sealed the great path of time, so you didn't know that I just used flowing time. Han Fei was speechless. Really? Wait, don't you have a bottom line? Let me tell you, I have a wife. I won't be responsible for you. Emochi asked, tell me, why didn't I tell you that I was the original body? Han Fei narrowed his eyes. It doesn't make sense for you to know whether I am the original body or not. Besides, I don't want my plan to be flawed. Emochi's eyes lit up. So, you are really the original body? Huh. Han Fei suddenly stood up. Wait, what do you mean? Emochi immediately smiled. I lied to you just now. I didn't use flowing time to kiss you. Why should I kiss you? You look like this now. Why should I kiss you? Why should I? Han Fei didn't know what to say. Sure enough, women were born liars. The more beautiful a woman was, the more likely she was to deceive people. The ancients were right. Emochi was pleasantly surprised. Wow, you even deceived me. Did you take a special great path? It can't be a great technique, right? I can't figure out how there can be a great technique that can hide oneself in front of an emperor. Han Fei thought to himself, it's normal that you don't know. How can you know the divine technique produced by the demon purification pot? Unfortunately, Han Fei tragically found that he was fooled and didn't persist any longer. How did you guess it? Emochi shrugged. You're growing too fast. It doesn't make sense. Alas, Han Fei let out a long breath. Okay, let's not beat around the bush. I'm not here to let you see through my identity. I just want to know that you don't really have to be trapped here, right? With your status, conditions, and identity, it shouldn't be difficult for you to leave the city of scavengers, right? This was a question that had been on Han Fei's mind for a long time. He wanted to figure it out before he went to the divine capital dynasty. Otherwise, he always felt that there was something wrong with what Emochi asked him to do. Emochi widened her eyes and looked at Han Fei in surprise. What's my identity? Han Fei said, the 10 lords. You can scold them at will. Zhao Hongwang can't control you. The 10,000 scales emperor acquiesces to your actions. He will probably ask you for help, right? You are not from the 10,000 scales clan yet, but your status in the city of scavengers is so special. I even think you are above Zhao Hongwang. So, why did you come to me? Why don't you go out by yourself? Based on the above questions, Han Fei suspected that Emochi was from the Temple of Time at the gathering in the Void Temple. This was his inherent impression. He felt that those who walked the Tao of Time would have something to do with the Temple of Time. Because he had only seen 2 in total. The Time Dragon Carp was the first, and Emochi was the second. The Time Dragon Carp was hunted by the Temple of Time, and Emochi had a high status. It was impossible not to arouse his suspicion. Smack! Emochi patted Han Fei on the shoulder like a big boss. Hey! I thought it was something important. I'm on a trial. Don't worry about my identity. Anyway, I can only leave here with my own ability. No matter what means I can only use my own means. Otherwise, how can I stay here? Wouldn't it be better for me to go to the divine capital dynasty? Han Fei chuckled. Then your trial is really long. Did the 10,000 scales emperor watch you in person? Emochi said, everyone's trial method is different. Although I am respected in the city of scavengers and have countless resources, I can do whatever I want. But I'm trapped. I can't just stare at the 10,000 scales clan for tens of thousands of years, can I? Han Fei didn't speak, but just looked at Emochi quietly. The latter seemed a little guilty. After a long while, he said, then if I tell you, will you also tell me why you tried so hard to sneak into the city of scavengers? With your strength, you can do well in the outside world. There's no reason for you to stay here, right? Han Fei nodded. Okay. Mo Chi's eyes lit up. Really? Han Fei nodded. Yes. Mo Chi immediately said, I come from a super force. Because this is my last trial, I must pass it alone. Once this trial is over, no one will care about me anymore. Although I can constantly harvest resources in the city of scavengers, become stronger, polish my foundation, and even explore the sea of stars, I hate the long time. Han Fei frowned. As expected of a super force. If not, why would the 10,000 Scales Emperor be so polite to Mo Chi? Han Fei asked, So, you really don't care about the life or death of the 10,000 Scales clan? You're just staying here temporarily? Mo Chi shook her head. I really don't care. The rise and fall of a race is a natural thing. In this world, races disappear and new races rise every day, just like birth, aging, sickness, and death. Anyway, my family never interferes with this. What about you? Why did you sneak into the 10,000 Scales clan? Han Fei took a deep look at Mo Chi. After a while, he became serious and said word by word, Because I am the Emperor of the human race. Chapter 2237. Emperor of the human race? As soon as Han Fei said this, Mo Chi immediately understood. The 10,000 Scale race had enslaved humans for tens of thousands of years. There were many strong humans who resisted. However, in the territory of the 10,000 Scale race, what was the point of resisting? Throughout history, there had been more than 1 or 2 human emperors who had fallen. Even if there were heaven-opening state powerhouses among humans, it was useless. The upper limit of martial power was suppressed by the 10,000 Scale race. As soon as a strong powerhouse appeared, he was crushed to death. How could he resist? Therefore, when Han Fei said, Emperor of the human race, Mo Chi knew that Han Fei and the 10,000 Scale race were mortal enemies. However, Mo Chi was also very smart. She didn't exclaim immediately. Instead, she said in surprise, So, your current body is fake? No. Since you sealed the great path of time on this body, this is your original body. But since you're walking on the great path of human emperor, you must be in human form. So, you just disguised yourself. Oh my God, what kind of disguise can make you do this? Teach me. Han Fei looked at Mo Chi as if she was an idiot. Do you believe me if I say I can't teach you? No. Han Fei shrugged. Some things can be taught and some things can't be taught. Besides, you're cheating, right? Do you think your elders will give you another final trial if they know you completed the trial this way? If I'm not wrong, your elders can trace back time too. Han Fei's question scared Mo Chi. Well, it was really possible. If he were to go back in time and find out that he had completed the trial in such a manner, he would probably have to go through another round. Mo Chi shivered. She was almost done with this round. She couldn't waste tens of thousands of years to complete a new trial. Although she really wanted Han Fei's disguise technique, she didn't continue asking. Han Fei said, So, you don't have to worry that I'll leave the scavenger city. I won't leave until the 10,000 Scale race is destroyed. Mo Chi said, But when will you destroy the 10,000 Scale race? Do you think you can destroy the 10,000 Scale race without attaining the Tao? Han Fei grinned. Solutions are always more difficult than difficulties. Difficult, indeed a little difficult. But just as you are now in the final trial. As the human emperor, annihilating the 10,000 Scale tribe is also my trial. This trial will determine whether or not I can prove my Tao. Mo Chi said, But you haven't become a star yet. If I were to wait for you to destroy the 10,000 Scale tribe and then help me escape, I might as well rely on myself. Han Fei grinned. You and I have a 1,000-year agreement. Within 1,000 years, even if the 10,000 Scale tribe is not annihilated, I will bring you away. Of course, if you manage to kill half of the 10,000 scale tribe in the trial, do you think your seniors will give you extra points in the trial? Emochi's eyes lit up, but then she said, "You want to use me. I'm telling the truth. Besides, I don't expect you to help me kill the 10,000 scales emperor. He is mine, and he can only be mine. You are quite confident. But I feel that if the 10,000 scale tribe is not destroyed, you may never prove your Tao. This means that even if you become a star, you will at most be on the verge of proving your Tao. To kill the 10,000 scales emperor, the difficulty, tisk tsk. Han Fei grinned. That's my business. Emochi shrugged. Alright. Compared to my trial, your trial is more difficult. But I'm a little curious. You don't seem to have a good impression of the primordial city. You are quite good at framing others. Unconsciously, you have created a barrier between the scavenger city and the primordial city. Han Fei yelled, "Between me and the primordial city, that's a private matter. I will also kill the Enclan's 2 emperors." Emochi couldn't help but stick out her tongue. What a murderous intent. I haven't even become a star, and I'm already thinking about killing the 3 emperors. Emochi couldn't help but think that fortunately, the trial given to her by her elders wasn't for her to kill an emperor. Otherwise, she wouldn't know when she would end up like Han Fei. Emochi thought that Han Fei would be confined to his own trial for a long time, but Han Fei didn't think so. For him, it was not difficult to become a star. Whatever the reason, since he could kill in Taiping and Chiu Shotsong now, he could naturally kill others in the future. When he really rose up, resources were not worth mentioning at all. Now that Han Fei and Emochi had told each other everything, there was no more grudge in his heart. So Emochi said, "Okay, you can't stay here all the time. Finally, I'll give you a piece of information. Your trip this time is not going well." Han Fei asked, "Huh?" Emochi said, "Yes, your trip to the Divine Capital Dynasty this time won't be smooth." Han Fei asked, "Did you see it with time reversal?" Emochi shrugged. "I don't have that ability. I just calculated it. Except for you, I'm very good at judging others." Han Fei understood. "It doesn't matter. They are not my clansmen anyway. Even if they all die, I can still live." Emochi asked, "If they all die, you are the only one alive. Do you dare to come back?" Han Fei smiled slightly. "It's not easy to kill them all." Han Fei didn't enter Emochi's residence for a long time. When he came out, the butler of the Zhou family was still kneeling there. As for Zhou Liheng and Zhou Bo, they were no longer there. Han Fei ignored Pan Ing and the others and went straight to the law enforcement camp. When he arrived at the law enforcement camp, before Han Fei entered the inner camp, Chen Yen said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "Boy, you're really something. As soon as you came back, you killed the young master of the Zhou family." Han Fei stopped and slightly cupped his hands. "He is no longer the young master of the Zhou family now." Chen Yen scoffed. "That's because Master Emochi is capable, not because of you. The first thing you did when you came back was to find Master Emochi." "What happened?" Han Fei nodded. "I went to thank him. Master Emochi calculated for me before." Chen Yen frowned. "Oh? He calculated for you this time too?" Han Fei frowned and then nodded. "Forget it. He said that those who survive a great disaster are bound to have good fortune later on." Haha. Chen Yen suddenly appeared beside Han Fei. "Master Emochi really said these words to you?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes, you can ask him at any time, Master." Chen Yen was not interested in provoking Emochi. Others might not know, but he knew that Emochi had a bad temper. Since Han Fei was so sure, there shouldn't be any problem. Besides, he had to report it to Master Primordial anyway. If he really wanted to ask, he would let Master Primordial ask him. Interestingly, this fortune was actually not bad. If these words were true, it at least meant that Han Fei survived the competition, and he was lucky enough to win the 10,000 years competition. Chen Yen nodded. It's almost time for you to come back. You don't have to go back to the law enforcement camp. Just come with me. Han Fei followed Chunyan and went straight to an open space outside Zhao Hongwang's cultivation place. However, at this moment there were already a lot of people sitting here, 87 in total, including Bai Ranran and Tianhong. When Han Fei appeared here, Bai Ranran slightly raised her eyes and didn't greet him. The others, after seeing Han Fei, were slightly surprised, but not very surprised. Someone had heard that Han Fei had gained a lot in the number 3 land of revival. Since he had gained a lot, he must have gone to digest the harvest during this period of time. Now that he could come here, it didn't seem to be a big problem. After all, Han Fei's previous performance was very strong, like a rising star. Chen Yan said, "Take a seat. In another half a month, almost everyone will be here." Chen Yan didn't say anything, and Han Fei didn't ask. Han Fei found a random place and sat down cross-legged, but there were some faint energy fluctuations coming from his body. It seemed to be telling others that his strength had been growing very fast recently and he was no longer the same person a few years ago. Of course, this kind of energy fluctuation was very subtle, and most people didn't notice it. Within half a month, more and more people came, from number 88 to number 138, and then from number 138 to number 150. The children of the big clans that Han Fei had seen before also came. Pan Ning, surprisingly, sat next to Bai Ranran. Until this half a month later, suddenly from the depths of the undersea jungle, a voice came, "Come in." Many people were shocked. They were unable to suppress the joy in their hearts. Their hearts were filled with excitement. "I've finally met Lord Chaos?" All the way until everyone was standing in front of Zhao Hongwang in a line. No one dared to move, as they all wanted to show Zhao Hongwang how powerful they were. Zhao Hongwang said, "Everyone, do you know why you are here today?" In fact, everyone who should know knew. Those who could be selected more or less knew something. 80% of the people here actually knew. Zhao Hongwang didn't wait for their response, but directly said, "The Divine Capital Dynasty holds a major competition every 10,000 years to select heavenly talents. The rewards are generous. This opportunity is extremely rare. In the entire scavenger city, I will only select 150 of you. Even if you can't compete with others, you can still watch the battle. Countless heavenly talents from the divine land of the East Ocean will participate and verify with each other. Even if you watch this major competition, you will still benefit a lot. Not to mention, once you are selected, you may go to the real starting ground, the treasure land in the Star Ocean and other places where treasures are everywhere." Han Fei had already heard that many people's breathing became heavier, and their blood flowed faster. It seemed that they already had a share of the treasures on the ground. Zhao Hongwang smiled slightly. "This opportunity only comes once in 10,000 years. You must cherish it. Generally speaking, as long as you can come back alive, it's not difficult for you to open the sky." Chapter 2238. For most pioneer sea-state powerhouses, splitting open the sky was their greatest pursuit. However, for those who could participate in the tournament of 10,000 years, splitting open the sky would be their new starting point. Everyone here even felt that if they participated in the great competition of the 10,000 years, they would definitely be able to split open the sky. Apart from these pioneer sea-state powerhouses, the scavenger city would also select a batch of venerable powerhouses. That was because the tournament of 10,000 years this time had a broader scope, and there was a tournament specifically for venerables. Of course, apart from venerables and pioneer sea-state powerhouses, heaven creation powerhouses also flocked to participate. For example, the powerhouse who was leading the team with Han Fei and the others this time was the First Lord, Pan Litian. Due to the death of Qiu Shotsang, the Emperor of 10,000 Scales seemed to have become much more cautious. A mere land of revival number 3 was able to cause the Lord of Earth Qiu Shotsang to die. In that case, the journey to the Divine Capital Dynasty was long. How could there not be an expert to oversee it? Apart from Pan Litian, the sixth lord, Chi Tonghai, was also going to the divine capital dynasty. Apart from the 10 great lords, 5 or 6 heaven creation powerhouses also joined the team for the tournament of 10,000 years. Han Fei guessed that apart from Pan Litian, Chi Tonghai was also going to participate in the tournament of 10,000 years. As for why Pan Litian was excluded, Han Fei thought that people like Zhao Hongwang and Pan Litian were already on the verge of attaining Dao validation. It was not for the so-called fortuitous encounter, but for an opportunity. At least, Zhao Hongwang did not need to participate in the tournament anymore. Pan Litian was leading the team because he could take care of the overall situation, and he might also be there to find some inspiration. However, Han Fei did not know the entry criteria for heaven creation powerhouses, so he naturally did not know who would participate. If the participants were all at Zhao Hongwang's level, he would not participate and would just watch from the side. Otherwise, participating in the heaven creation tournament would be no different from courting death. With Pan Litian as the leader, the heaven creation powerhouses led Han Fei and the others in the chaotic wasteland for about 5 months. Finally, Han Fei and the others saw a ray of light. It was as if the first light of dawn had appeared in the sky, bringing light to the world. Pan Litian said, "Everyone, keep up." Buzz, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A moment later, the group of people rushed out of the darkness and appeared in a world of light. Here, they saw the surface of the sea, which was not frozen. Many people saw the sky for the first time. They saw the blazing sun, the blue sky, the white clouds, and the clear blue sea. Subconsciously, almost all the heaven-opening experts unconsciously looked in the direction they had come from. Within their range of perception, they sensed sparse floating ice, and the seawater behind them rarely surged with any large waves. It was as if there was darkness behind them, and light in front of them. The two were extremely discordant, yet they seemed to be embedded together. Pan Litian shouted, "Everyone, listen up! This was the exit of the primal chaos wasteland. This was also the outside world. The journey to the divine capital dynasty of the Eastern Seas divine prefecture was long and arduous. As for me, it's impossible for me to protect you all the way. Therefore, you'll have to walk your own path from now on." You want to walk by yourself? Pan asked. "Where is the Shindu dynasty? Where should we go?" Pan Litian smirked. "I won't tell you the way to the Shindu dynasty. Also, I won't protect you all the way. From now on, this will be your last trial before you head to the Shindu dynasty. Although the Divine Capital Dynasty is to select 150 Pioneer Sea cultivators, you must know that just because you're chosen doesn't mean you'll definitely be able to participate in the tournament." Gasp! What? There's no map? How are we supposed to go without a map? There's still a trial? Many people widened their eyes. They thought, why do we still have to go through a trial here? Hearing this, Han Fei didn't care at all. He even frowned slightly. If this was the case, everyone was scattered. What was the danger of this trip that Emochi mentioned? However, Pan Litian said, "I'll be frank with you. If you can't even find the Shindu dynasty or make your way there, it'll be useless even if you participate in the tournament because you're trash. Therefore, to prove that you're not trash, do everything you can to get to the Shindu dynasty. By the way, there's 50 years to go until the tournament begins. You'd better hurry up. Based on my estimation, it'll be difficult for 100 of you to reach the Shindu dynasty in 50 years. Those who can't make it, just give up. This path isn't destined to belong to you." Gasp! 50 years? They were a bunch of Pioneer Sea cultivators, and they might not even reach the Shindu dynasty in 50 years. How far would they have to go? Even Han Fei was speechless. However, he quickly realized something. The 50 years that Pan Litian mentioned was not the time for them to travel the entire way. He mentioned that the path would be filled with difficulties and obstacles. Therefore, this trial was actually meant for them to overcome the difficulties and obstacles. That was why it was called the last trial. Many people gasped. So, Pan Litian is just sending them to the exit of the chaotic wasteland? As for how to reach the Shindu dynasty, they'll have to rely on themselves? Interesting. Han Fei's lips curled. Finding a path was too easy for him. It was even meaningless. However, at this moment, Bai Ranran glanced at him. The first squad has 5 members: Tianhong, Yu, Pan Ying, and Li Shenhao. Han Fei asked, "Isn't this the last trial? Can we form a team?" Bai Ranran said, "You've been selected into the first squad. You're my team member." Han Fei cursed in his heart. If they really left together, he wasn't sure if he would kill Bai Ranran and the other 3 personally. However, thinking of Emochi's reminder, Han Fei did not turn her down. He simply nodded. However, he knew Pan Ying, but he had no idea who Li Shenhao was. At this moment, Pan Ying and a fat man walked to Bai Ranran. To be honest, it was the first time that Han Fei had seen such a fat man in the 10,000 Scales tribe, a tribe that had scales all over its body. The scales swayed on his body like ripples. His belly was like that of a woman who had been pregnant for 10 months. Apart from that, the fat on his face was almost falling off. Seeing that, Han Fei naturally walked to Bai Ranran's side. Other than Bai Ranran and the others who had formed their own teams, the rest of the 150 people quickly grouped together and formed dozens of smaller teams. There were only 2 or 3 people who were alone, and those who were alone also formed teams. Pan Litian did not say anything about that. Because they had just left the chaotic wasteland, they did not know much about the outside world. If they encountered any danger, they might not be able to handle it alone. However, a team of 3 or 5 people was a powerful team. They were all at the peak of the sea expansion realm. Even if they encountered a heaven-opening realm enemy, they might still be able to fight them. At least, they might be able to escape. Pan Litian said, "I'll be waiting for you in the Divine Capital Dynasty." As he spoke, Pan Litian nodded at the other heaven-opening realm expert. Then they all left. Han Fei rolled his eyes inwardly. He really did not want to form a team. If he had the time, he might be able to kill everyone except Pan Litian. That would be a lot of resources. Han Fei was thinking about what Emochi said. Did it mean that there would be danger? When would it come? It would be 50 years. God knew what kind of danger they would have to go through. If there were too many dangers, it was not impossible that Bai Ranran and the others would all die in the end. He did not want to form a team with such a group of people. Not only was it slow, but it was also inefficient. Bai Ranran said, "What do you think about setting off to the Divine Capital Dynasty?" Li Shenhao, the big fatty, chuckled and said, "Captain, we must find a sea expansion realm creature in the sea outside and ask them first. After all, we've never been to the outside world." As he spoke, Li Shenhao was still smiling. He seemed to be saying that he was stupid and that he was a good person. Pan Ying was considered normal. She said, "That's indeed the best choice. I've read in an ancient book that the sea we're in can no longer be called the outer sea. This place is called the wilderness outside the city. It's very, very vast, even larger than the chaotic wasteland. It's said that there are many wilderness nomads in the wilderness. They've built many wilderness cities, towns, islands, and so on. It's said that the city of the nomads is made up of nomads from the wilderness. As long as we find such a settlement, we can get a lot of information." Everyone couldn't help but look at Pan Ying. Li Shenhao exclaimed in an exaggerated manner, "Sister Ying, how come you're so knowledgeable? You even know things outside the wasteland?" Han Fei and the others couldn't help but look at Li Shenhao. Is this guy crazy? He feels like he's discovered a new continent. Why is he so shocked? Besides, the corner of Pan Ying's mouth twitched. "You're so fat. Why do you call me sister?" Li Shenhao, however, didn't care about that at all. He clicked his tongue and said, "As long as we find this wilderness camp, We can throw energy crystals at them until they call us Grandpa. Everyone. Chapter 2239. Han Fei had no idea how someone as pompous and vain as Li Shunhao managed to get into Bai Ranran's team. Anyway, the guy couldn't be as stupid as he looked, or Bai Ranran wouldn't have accepted him. However, after hearing Li Shunhao's name and surname, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Who is this guy?" Before Bai Ranran introduced him, Li Shunhao chuckled and rubbed his hands. "Brother Feng Lu, I'm from the number 18 farm, and Li Datsai is my father. I've long admired Brother Feng Lu's elegant demeanor. Brother Feng Lu single-handedly broke through the scavenger arena. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that Brother Feng Lu can take care of me. My Li family only has 386 brothers, and I'm the only one who can come to this 10,000-year competition." While they were talking, Li Shunhao took out a star shell and stuffed it into Han Fei's hand under the gaze of Bai Ranran and the others, as if he had never taken the star shell in his hand. Han Fei intended to refuse, but when he scanned it with his senses, he discovered that there were 20 million energy crystals, a billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, and 10,000 kilograms of earth vein spring in the star shell. It was too much even though it was just a greeting gift. Xue Fei's annual income wasn't much higher than that when he was in charge of the number 80 farm. Han Fei was going to give it back, but then he thought of something else. Why wouldn't he turn down the resources that were delivered to him? Li Shunhao didn't even look at the star shell. He simply stared at Han Fei with a smile. Seeing that Han Fei did not return the money, he was instantly reminded of his father's words. In this world, money is everything. As long as you are shameless enough to give them a favor, even if you don't, you won't lose anything. Everyone will think you're weak. This is a good way to hide your true identity. Li Shunhao firmly believed in that. Even Yi Fenglu, who was as cold as an iceberg, accepted his bribe. While giving the greeting gift to Han Fei, Li Shunhao said, "Seriously, Brother Feng Lu, Sister Ing, Boss Ranran, and Brother Hong, did you each drop a star shell just now? You were too careless. Thankfully, I picked them all up." After saying that, Li Shunhao was about to stuff Pan Ying, Bai Ranran, and Tian Hong. Pan Ying's face darkened. "Take it back." The corner of Bai Ranran's mouth twitched, and she called out in a low voice, "Li Shunhao." Neither of them took it, but Tian Hong actually reached out and took it. "So, just because you're wearing a suit of iron and others can't see your face, you don't need to care about your face?" Li Shunhao smiled and said, "Ah, what a waste. Sister Ing, Sister Ranran, you guys are really too wasteful. If you drop something, just pick it up. Why don't you want it? Forget it, I will reluctantly keep it for you. Don't worry, if we need to spend money on this journey, I'll definitely pay for it all." Han Fei was speechless when he saw Li Shunhao's calm face. As the saying goes, as long as you're not embarrassed, others will be the one who's embarrassed? It was the first time he saw someone stuffing money into someone else's pocket in such a refreshing and refined manner. At this moment, Han Fei even wondered if this guy had bought the first squad with money. As for embarrassment, Han Fei wasn't. Yi Fenglio's face had always been expressionless. The only thing he was thinking about at this moment was whether or not he should rob the fatty. As the saying went, one shouldn't show one's wealth, and the fatty was showing a lot of it. However, on second thought, Han Fei felt that it was unnecessary. No matter how many resources the fatty had, he wouldn't be able to expand his origin sea for another 10,000 kilometers. It didn't seem necessary to rob him now. In comparison, Han Fei suddenly felt that the fatty was more flexible. Also, he had met Li Datsai, the owner of the number 18 farm, who was truly wealthy. It was unnecessary to cheat his son, but he should cheat his father. Han Fei put away the star shell and fell silent, as if he didn't care about Li Shunhao's background anymore. Pan Ying's impression of Han Fei was greatly reduced. She thought to herself that he was bought over by such a small favor. What a loser! Bai Ranran said, Then let's find a creature in the Pioneer Sea realm and ask him where the nearest wilderness settlement is. We'll make plans after we get some basic information. When Bai Ran and the others were about to leave, a young man suddenly said, Bai Ran, there is strength in numbers. Your first squad and my second squad are two of the strongest squads. Why don't we go together? Han Fei knew who the newcomer was. The man named Yi Qingzhou had gathered a bunch of experts. There were 8 of them in his second squad, and none of them looked weak. Bai Ran glanced at Yi Qingzhou indifferently. There are too many of you. The trial is meaningless. Let's go our separate ways. Yi Qingzhou smiled. Then have a safe trip. See you in the Divine Capital Dynasty. After traveling tens of millions of kilometers, Bai Ran paused for a moment, and Pan said, Ran, Yi Qingzhou doesn't seem to have good intentions. I'm told that he's very jealous. We should leave him alone. Bai Ran said, he won't do anything on the surface. Let's go into the void. This place is close to the wasteland, and the creatures here don't seem to be very strong. Let's go further away. One day later. They were already very far away from the wasteland when they were rushing at full speed. The creatures here were getting stronger, and there were more and more creatures in the venerable realm. Another 2 days later, Han Fei and the others met the first creature in the Pioneer Sea realm. Although they only met one creature in the Pioneer Sea realm after 3 days, they all knew that it was just a wild guess. The outside world was so vast that they might not be able to cover all of it in 100 or even 1,000 years. Now that they had met a creature in the Pioneer Sea realm, it meant that there were many experts in the outside world. The creature that Han Fei and the others caught was a sea mussel. It was discovered because it was too big and its body was as wide as 100 kilometers. Obviously, this sea mussel didn't seem to think that there would be any danger in this place, so it lived here. It concealed itself with the strength of a king, but revealed a big straw, which was disguised as a cave in the mountain like an undersea chimney. This would make many creatures voluntarily crawl into its mouth. Among the 5 of them, Bai Ran didn't like to fight unless she encountered a powerful enemy. Tian Hong had always been unapproachable. After Han Fei saw the big mussel, he just stopped and didn't take any action. Only Pan Ying and Li Shenhao were left. But when Li Shenhao saw this creature, he exclaimed, "What a big live sea mussel! It's not an ominous creature. It's so plump. It's simply a work of art." Anyway, Han Fei had taken the money, so he didn't care what Li Shenhao said. However, before Li Shenhao finished, the sea mussel that was trying to escape was poked a big hole by Pan Ying. Han Fei said indifferently, "Your work of art is broken." Li Shenhao never thought that Han Fei would respond to him. Even Bai Ran and Tian Hong couldn't help but look at Han Fei. In their impression, Han Fei was the same as them, indifferent and indifferent. It never occurred to them that Han Fei would talk to an idiot like Li Shenhao. At this moment, Pan Ying stood straight on the mussel and shouted, "Answer my question, and you may live." The mussel hurriedly begged, "My lords, please spare my life. I'm just a mussel born in a remote sea. I don't care about worldly affairs. I know what you want to ask, and I will try my best to answer you." Pan Ying glanced at Bai Ran and the others. Seeing Bai Ran slightly nod, she said sternly, "Tell me, where is the nearest wilderness nomad camp?" "Hey, my lord, this place is not close to the nomad camp. This place is close to the border of the chaotic wasteland. If you want to reach the wanderer camp, you will need several months to get there." Pan Ying raised her eyebrows. "So far?" The mussel said, "My lord, it's very far for me, but it's not far for you. My lords, if you keep going deeper into the wilderness, you will encounter more and more nomad camp." Pan Ying said, "I'm asking about the nearest one. Why are you beating around the bush? You have already reached the sea expansion realm, and have been living on the border all year round. How can you not know? Tell me, or I don't mind searching your soul." The mussel was horrified. "My lord, please spare my life. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. It's less than a month to the west of here. There's an island called the Hidden Island. Many independent cultivators gather there. They don't like fighting and only pursue slow cultivation. Humph! Why didn't you tell me earlier? Pan-Ing was about to slap the mussel to death, when Bai Ran said lightly, "Let it go." The mussel was horrified and hurriedly thanked her. "Thank you for sparing my life, my lord." However, the big mussel ran away with a whoosh. It was extremely fast and directly disappeared into the void. Bai Ran said, "There's no need to kill your way there. We're new here, and we should be careful." Chapter 2240. Even though the clam had run away, Pan-Ing felt that she had already received the news. She looked at Bai Ran and the others and said, "It seems that the hidden island is not bad. Shall we go there?" Bai Ran nodded slightly, indicating that she had no objections. However, when the three of them were about to move, they saw that Han Fei and Li Shunhao had no intention of moving at all. Pan-Ing asked, "What's wrong? Be careful." Li Shunhao smiled and said, "Although Sister Ing performed very well just now, subduing a living clam that was like a work of art, and asking for such important information about the camp in the wilderness, it's still not enough. However, I think we can find another sea expansion cultivator to ask. In any case, a few more days won't make any difference." Pan-Ing frowned. "Do you think this clam is lying to me? With that little bit of strength, would it dare?" However, Bai Ran's heart shook, and she immediately said, "Let's head in that direction first, and ask another living being along the way." A day and a half later, a group of people swept across the vast sea. In the past, they had always lived at the bottom of the sea. It was rare for them to be able to move about on the surface of the sea. How could they not be excited? Who would want to stay at the bottom of the sea? Pan Ying's eyes lit up when everyone sensed that something was amiss. Just as she was about to make a move, she suddenly discovered that there was a saber hilt in front of her. "Pan-Ing, what are you doing?" "Li Shunhao, you go." Li Shunhao chuckled and said, "Well, can you all show up later? This might lower its guard." They had no objection to this, but Pan-Ing frowned. Did Yi Fenglu not trust her? Could it be that he was inferior to this fatty? But then, they saw Li Shunhao make a move. He didn't even move. He directly landed near the sea cucumber hidden under the seabed. Li Shunhao, "Fellow Taoist, the wilderness is boundless, and it is fate that we met. I mean no harm, I just want to ask you for directions." Li Shunhao did not exude any killing intent, and his qi and blood were not moving. If one did not know better, they would think that he was just an ordinary fatty. As for the sea cucumber, he felt that his aura had been locked onto. If it weren't for the fact that this fatty didn't have any killing intent and looked kind, he would have attacked him just now. Buzz, the sea cucumber shook its body and drilled out of the seabed, looking like a half-grown child. Although his eyes were vigilant, he was willing to talk. He said, "You want to ask for directions?" Li Shunhao laughed and said, "Ha! Fellow Taoist, I am Li Shunhao. I came here to search for a secret realm, but I didn't expect to get lost. There are no records of this place on the sea chart. Can I ask you if there are any wilderness nomads camps here so that I can get a new sea chart?" Li Shunhao took out a star shell with a smile and said, "Fellow Taoist, it must be fate that brought us together. Consider this information a bribe from me. We're all in the wilderness, and it's not easy for us to survive. Please do us a favor." The sea cucumber looked into the star shell and saw that there were many top-grade spirit stones and several hundred kilograms of earth-veined spring water. Although the amount was not a lot, it was enough to buy a piece of information. Moreover, this kind of business was an unexpected windfall. In this godforsaken place, it was not easy to meet such a benevolent person. Immediately, the sea cucumber said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, if you want to find a wilderness camp, there are only two within a month. One is to the east, where there is an ascetic cultivator camp with a king overseeing it. You can exchange some resources there. However, the ascetic cultivator camp is not completely fixed. Occasionally, they will go back and forth in the southeast, northeast, and east. So, it doesn't matter if you can't find it there. You can go to the southeast or northeast and look for it. You will definitely find it in 2 months at most. The sea cucumber man saw that Li Shunhao was smiling and didn't look like a bad person, so he continued, I only know the location of the other one. It is a dream island in the west. It is said that there are treasures on that island, but it is not easy to get to that island because it is shrouded in fog all year round. Several of my friends went missing there, but some people came out after entering and even obtained benefit. Li Shunhao said in surprise, Treasure Island? Isn't it the wilderness nomads' camp? The sea cucumber said, Although it is a camp, it is not on the island but on a big ship outside the island. Of course, the big ship is often not there. Big ship? Li Shunhao didn't know what a ship was, so he was puzzled. The sea cucumber said, Well, it is not a very big ship, only about 100 meters long. You know, some creatures don't like to live in the sea. Li Shunhao laughed and said, Thank you very much, fellow Taoist. By the way, are there any bigger nomads' camps nearby? The sea cucumber man said, No, this place is too close to the wasteland. Who would be willing to come here? Only those who can't live in the depths of the wilderness will come here to fight for resources. Li Shunhao said, Thank you for telling me, fellow Taoist. We will meet again. The sea cucumber smiled and said, Fellow Taoist, I suggest you go to the ascetic cultivators' camp. It is safer there. Hey. Okay. After a while, Li Shunhao came back, but at this moment, everyone was looking at Pan Ying. Obviously, everyone had heard the conversation between Li Shunhao and the sea cucumber. At this moment, Pan Ying's face was red. That damn clam, I should have killed it back then. Li Shunhao chuckled. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Although there is no hidden island, it is probably the dream island. The clam didn't lie to us. Pan Ying said, It wants to trick us into taking risk. I think we should go to the ascetic cultivators' camp. There's no need to take risk. However, Han Fei paused. A trial is not a place to take risk. Pan Ying said, That doesn't mean we're going to take risks, right? Our destination is the divine capital dynasty. Han Fei glanced at Pan Ying indifferently. The purpose of the trial is to grow. You even want to avoid this little danger. Are you going to participate in the major competition of 10,000 years? Pan Ying was speechless for a moment. Am I the only one who is timid? Li Shunhao looked at the two people who were at each other's throat. Pan Ying was a disciple of the Pan family's new generation. Pan Ying's talent was extremely high, but it seemed like she was being completely suppressed by Yi Fenglu. Bai Ranran soon made a decision. She said, It's a long way to the divine capital dynasty. We've just left the chaotic wasteland, and according to the description of the two pioneer sea realm creatures we met, this should be a remote place. Even if there is danger, it shouldn't be so dangerous that even the first squad can't resist it. Let's go. Pan Ying nodded slightly, but for some reason, she disliked Yi Fenglu more and more. He was always bickering with her. He made a fool of himself by asking for directions, as if she were not as useful as Li Shunhao. In fact, Han Fei did think so. Although Li Shunhao was fat, he was very smart. Besides, not everything in this world could only be solved by force. Li Shunhao was rich, so he could solve any small problem with money. That was Li Shunhao's advantage. 1 month passed. When they sensed an island shrouded in white mist, their eyes all lit up. To be honest, although they saw countless creatures along the way, there were few strong ones. Most creatures seemed to be afraid of the chaotic wasteland and didn't dare to approach it. Meanwhile, when they saw the inhabited area, it meant that they were about to leave this so-called wilderness borderland. Bai Ranran said, There is no so-called big ship around, and the mist outside the island can't penetrate it. The entire island is no more than 6,000 kilometers long, and we can vaguely see the shape of the mountain. There are fewer and fewer creatures around, and their strength is getting lower and lower. The island should be dangerous. After briefly explaining the situation, Bai Ranran said, "Let's go. Let's go to the island." "Hey," Pan Ning asked, "Sister Ranran, are we going to go to the island?" Li Shunhao also said, "Boss Ranran, should we be more cautious?" Bai Ranran said indifferently, "This is not a place where spiritual energy gathers, and there are no excessive changes in the Tao. The sea is normal, and it is not a place where strong people live for a long time. So, we can go to the island. If there is danger, we can retreat. Let's go in together. Even if we really encounter danger, there will be very few living beings here that can stop us." Han Fei thought to himself, Bai Ranran's analysis is quite accurate. Indeed, the feeling this island gave him was nothing special. Although there were signs of danger, the danger was not high. Besides, he could also feel a slight concentration of spiritual energy in the surrounding white mist, which meant that there should be creatures on the island, but they would not be very strong. Since the danger was low, Bai Ranran naturally had nothing to be cautious about. Therefore, the 5 of them barged in without any scruples. After they entered, they immediately found that this layer of mist had no effect of blocking them, but only concealed the appearance of the island. As soon as they entered, they saw that the entire island was a huge primeval forest. On the island there were rolling mountains, and about half of the areas could not be detected by perception, because those places were mostly covered in mist. As for the source of the mist, they all looked at the center of the island, where the mist was the thickest. All the mist seemed to disperse from there. Bai Ranran said, "Something is wrong. In the perceptible area, the strongest creature is only a venerable, and it can't detect us at all. It seems that the most dangerous area should be the mountain range in the center of the island." And Han Fei's perception was actually far better than that of Bai Ranran and the others, especially his soul power, which became more and more powerful after exceeding 5 million points. Bai Ranran and the others couldn't see the area in the center clearly, but Han Fei vaguely saw that there was an ancient tree more than 3,000 meters high there. And there seemed to be a simple village below it. Chapter 2241. Since Han Fei could see through the dream island at a glance, it meant that the danger on the island was not serious, at least not for him. However, Bai Ranran and the others were not fools. They looked at the central area immediately. Bai Ranran said, "The weirdness starts there. Let's go there." Bam! Tian Hong, who had been silent, stepped on the air and went to the edge of the central area ahead of the others. This was the tacit understanding between him and Bai Ranran. If Ghost Blade hadn't died, he would have attacked together with Tian Hong. Thud! Tian Hong picked up the iron rod and smashed it on the ground. With a thunderous noise, the area within a radius of hundreds of kilometers collapsed as if a nuclear explosion had been triggered. The Dream Island was not large in the first place. If someone attacked the central area, the people there would definitely be affected. Therefore, the power inside the white mist immediately began to resist the impact of Tian Hong's attack. Immediately, Tian Hong said, "Come out." As he lifted the Vajra pillar, Han Fei could clearly see the aura of the heavenly way fused into this strike. This made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. Tian Hong's strength had increased? Accompanied by Tian Hong's attack, the white mist was hit into a spiral, but it was soon blocked by a soft power. "Stop! Fellow cultivators, please don't attack." At this moment, an old voice came from the white mist, as if asking Tian Hong to stop. Bai Ranran said casually, "That's enough." Like a robot, Tian Hong withdrew the giant pillar. Then, an old man and a middle-aged man walked out of the white mist. "I didn't know you were coming. Please excuse me. I'm Ji Chang, and this is Ding Yuan, the village leader." At this moment, Bai Ranran and Han Fei had come to Tian Hong. Bai Ranran asked, "What's this white mist?" The old man hurried to explain, "It's the mist of the dream tree, which can hide part of the island. We are all hermits and don't like to be disturbed. We only exchange some resources with the outside world occasionally. So, it seems a bit mysterious to outsiders. You are all real experts. If you need anything, you can come to the village and have a look. We are actually very poor. As soon as the old man came out, he started acting pitiful. She sounded sincere, but Han Fei felt that something was wrong. If there were no surprises, this dream island should also be called the Hidden Island. The clam was right. However, Han Fei didn't notice any fluctuation in the old man's voice. As a reclusive person, wasn't his response a little too steady when faced with a powerhouse that suddenly appeared? Also, the middle-aged man just followed the old man without saying anything. Although there was vigilance in his eyes, Han Fei saw that the man was circulating his spiritual energy as usual. Shouldn't a normal person be ready for battle at this moment? The circulation of the spiritual qi in his body would definitely not be so smooth. But these details were actually very difficult to see under the same realm. Therefore, Bai Ranran did not feel anything different. In fact, Panning even asked, "Is it really the Hidden Island?" The old man smiled and said, Yes, there are also people who call this place the Hidden Island, but most of them have never been here before, so they don't know much about us." Panning said, "So be it. You are already living in such a remote place. Why are you still hiding? Is there any secret that you can't see? Hey, this young lady is wrongly accusing us. It's just a lousy island. What kind of shameful secret could there be? If you don't mind, you can enter the island and have a look. Our village is very small. There are less than 30 people in total. Most of them can't walk on the main road." As he spoke, old man Ji Chang led by Ranran and the others inside. Because the surrounding mist was largely broken by Tian Hong's attack, they could vaguely see the scene inside. There seemed to be a big tree, and some people seemed to be looking at them. Bai Ranran naturally didn't feel threatened, but Panning looked at Han Fei and Li Shenhao and snorted, thinking, "Look, I was not tricked, was I? What danger can they pose to us with such little ability?" Li Shenhao was also a little confused, but he didn't show it. He just looked at Bai Ranran with a smile. If this big boss dared to enter, he dared to enter too. Whether or not they would encounter an ambush, it had nothing to do with him anyway. "I'm here to freeload off the team." Han Fei didn't say anything. He was also curious about the world outside the chaotic wasteland and wanted to see what mysteries there were here. Therefore, the group of people also followed them out. When they followed old man Ji Chang and the village leader named Ding Yuan, they only walked for about 100 meters, took a few detours, and soon appeared inside the white mist. Walala, the first thing that caught Bai Ranran's eyes was not the cultivators who looked at them curiously, but the sky full of tiny pink petals the size of a thumb, which looked like cherry blossoms all over the sky. The top half of the tree that was thousands of meters high was almost pinkish purple. It was a beautiful view. "It's so beautiful. How can there be such a beautiful place in this world?" Panning exclaimed and reached out to catch the petals. Even Bai Ranran couldn't help but take a few. She let the cherry blossom leaves fall on her body, emitting a faint, refreshing fragrance. The first thing they saw was the beautiful petal shower. When they came to their senses, they looked at the other people in the village. There were a total of 34 people in the village, 22 men and 12 women. They were all experts in the Pioneer Sea realm. Their strength was uneven. Only the village leader and a woman were at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm. The others were a little bit weaker. Bai Ranran and the others didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Even if these people attacked them, they were no match for any one of them. Even Li Shenhao, who had been pretending to be stupid, could kill all 34 people here if he really went all out. Bai Ranran immediately lost interest. She just said indifferently, 2 things. "Do you have a sea map of the surrounding area? And where is the largest settlement in the wilderness near here?" Bai Ranran didn't think that these people knew the way to the divine capital dynasty, because she felt that it would be very difficult for them to cross the wilderness with their strength. Since they couldn't cross the wilderness, How could they know the location of the divine capital dynasty? Old man Ji Chang hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. We will have a sea map. But the area is not very large. However, there are still quite a number of large settlements in this area." While the old man was talking, Han Fei suddenly felt that something was wrong. He felt that his eyelids suddenly became abnormally heavy, and the long-lost sleepiness suddenly hit him. However, as a sky creator, he didn't even fall asleep in the star sea. He even lasted a day in the endless void. How could he fall asleep in such a shabby place? When Han Fei came back to his senses, he felt as if there were countless hands on his body, as if to seal him. And this method of sealing him was to fall asleep. Plop! At this moment, Li Shenhao fell on the ground with a plop, and for a moment, he was snoring like thunder. Pan Ning didn't fare much better. She also fell down, and she didn't last 2 seconds longer than Li Shenhao. Even Tian Hong and Bai Ranran staggered, as if they had been greatly affected by it. And Han Fei, his heart skipped a beat. Since there were already 2 people lying on the ground, there was no need to add one more. Thus, he also took the opportunity to lie down and sleep on the ground. Bam! Tian Hong was a little better, but he suddenly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, as if he was resisting the power that made him fall asleep. The only one who could still resist was Bai Ranran. The fine scales on her body slightly opened and closed, and turbid air was discharged from her body. "You're courting death." Ho! A white dragon appeared between Bai Ranran's eyebrows, and the dragon roared and spewed out world-burning white flames. The cherry blossoms in the sky were annihilated and turned into ashes in midair. At this moment, a voice chuckled softly. "No wonder you're the strongest of the younger generation in the city of scavengers. Bai Ranran, I heard that you once opened the sea and split the sky. Let's see if you can kill me today." Bai Ranran frowned. "Who are you?" The man laughed and said, I will tell you after you die." In the blink of an eye, this person's heaven-opening strength burst forth. Taking advantage of the fact that Bai Ranran was resisting the power of slumber, he swept out with the annihilation sword Scar in an attempt to kill Bai Ranran, a woman who was in his way. But then the white dragon stretched out its claws and attacked this man. You're just a companion spirit of the sea creator realm. How dare you?" The man raised his hand and pointed a finger at the air, and the white dragon's claws collapsed. Fortunately, Bai Ranran took the opportunity to summon her second companion spirit. The sea brush appeared, and the sword light of the sky creator realm slashed out of the circle and was sealed in the endless void. Bai Ranran snorted coldly, and the air around her exploded. It seemed that she had finally broken free from the power of sleep. "No matter who you are, you're just a sky creator realm cultivator. What can you do to me?" That person didn't expect Bai Ranran to break free from the seal of deep slumber so quickly, and he was shocked. He immediately shouted, "Everyone, attack! Kill those 4 first." Han Fei was considering whether he should attack or not. He was wondering which family had sent this person. Since he knew Bai Ranran, it could only be someone from the City of Wanderers and the City of Primordial. Come to think of it, this should be what Mo Chi meant when she said that this trip was not smooth. This was definitely not just for Bai Ranran and her team, but for the entire scavenger city. If there was no accident, the camp of ascetics in the east should also be controlled by someone. Han Fei had thought about killing Bai Ranran and the others before, but now he didn't think so. No matter how they grew, it was impossible for them to keep up with his growth speed. On the contrary, if Bai Ranran and the others died, he would be questioned. At this moment, Bai Ranran stretched out her hand and drew a line in the air, but the Sky Creator Realm cultivator's body stiffened in the air. The man was shocked. You're using more than one path. Divine seal, divine descent. From the City of Primordial? Bai Ranran's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't continue to attack this person, but prepared to stop those who wanted to kill Han Fei and the others. But as soon as she turned her head, she saw a dazzling sword light sweeping up into the air. The sword light merged with the Tao and swept past the Sky Creator Realm powerhouse in an instant. Bai Ranran raised her eyebrows. The unity of man and sword? Puff! This heaven-opening expert was directly killed by the blade that contained the aura of the heaven and earth Tao. Even his spirit was mostly destroyed by the power of the heaven way in the blade light. Chapter 2242. As long as the method was right, it wouldn't be a big problem. The heaven-opening state created a star sea. At first, it was unrealistic to want to travel in the star sea as soon as the sky was created. Therefore, in the beginning, the function of the star sea was to let the origin sea breed more great ways, so that the origin sea could connect with the heavenly way. Therefore, in the early stage of the heaven-opening state, only in terms of comprehensive strength, physique, divine soul, and other aspects, was far superior to the sea-opening state. However, when the best of the sea-opening state also mastered the Tao of heaven and earth and could connect with the heavenly way, then in theory, the difference between the sea-opening state and the sky-opening state would only be the difference of strength, not the so-called suppression of the realm. Therefore, when Bai Ranran saw Han Fei's slash, she knew that Han Fei had made a great progress, and this heaven-opening state was probably doomed. Puff! The divine soul of this heaven-opening state was not completely destroyed. This was a flaw that Han Fei deliberately left. Seeing this, Bai Ranran immediately took action. The white dragon sucked all the divine soul power in the range into its mouth, and then it exploded in the white dragon's mouth, emitting a burst of green smoke. Rumble! At that moment, the weather changed, and a crack of the Great Way appeared in the sky, spanning more than 100,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, perhaps because the sea realm was too large and there were many strong masters, such a crack of the Great Way didn't attract much attention. And the local masters of the Dream Island who were going to attack Han Fei and the others were all horrified at this moment, as if they were shocked. These two were only at the sea-opening state. How could they resist the influence of the dream-eating technique? At this time, Ji Chong and the village leader Ding Yuan were both horrified, but they didn't dare to retreat. These two were the masters of the sea-opening state, which was equivalent to the heaven-opening state, wasn't it? When Bai Ranran looked at them, Ji Chong hurriedly said, "You two, let's talk it over. We were completely threatened by this person. This person came to our island decades ago. How can we compete with a heaven-opening state master? We have no choice but to obey him. In fact, we just want to live in seclusion and don't want to get involved in other people's battles." Old man Ji Chong said innocently. Bai Ranran took the initiative to ask, "How do we wake them up?" Old man Ji Chong quickly took out a few white fruits and said, "These are the fruits of the Dream Eater tree. Eat them and you'll be cured." Bai Ranran took the fruit and did not suspect anything. She felt that this old man would not do something stupid. The only heaven-opening tier cultivator on this island had already fallen, and he and Yi Fenglu had not been disturbed by the dream realm yet, so how would these people dare to act rashly? However, Han Fei shook his head slightly. Just as Bai Ranran fed the fruits to the three of them, Han Fei suddenly said, "Wait a minute." Bai Ranran couldn't help but look at Han Fei inquiringly. Han Fei didn't even look at the fruit. Instead, he looked at the old man and said, "You eat one first." No matter how stupid Bai Ranran was, she could sense that something was wrong. It was right for Han Fei to be cautious in this situation. How could she trust a stranger? Bai Ranran wondered if she had gone silly. He actually wanted to feed these fruits to Pan Ing and the others. Old man Ji Chong was shocked and couldn't help but look up at Han Fei, his eyes glowing fiercely. At that moment, all the sea-opening tier cultivators behind the old man started to burn their essence blood and charged at Han Fei and Bai Ranran. It was a pity that Bai Ranran was the strongest cultivator in the law enforcement camp, not to mention Han Fei. If he attacked with all his strength, he could destroy this island with a finger. How could these people deal with him? Therefore, Han Fei didn't need to do anything. Bai Ran personally took action. Her dragon devoured the wilderness, her brush shaped into a fierce blade. One sea expansion expert after another was cut apart. Han Fei stopped Old Man Ji Chang, who was about to run up the tree. The old man said fiercely, "Boy, you ruined my plan. Don't think about living well. Bloom, Dream Eater Divine Tree." Han Fei looked back, only to see that the 1,000-meter-tall ancient tree began to sway, and the sky was covered with pink and white petals. Such dense petals were very strange. Han Fei didn't give Old Man Ji Chang a chance to escape, but directly annihilated Old Man Ji Chang's body and soul with a backhand slash. But Han Fei's attack didn't stop. He hurriedly slashed again. His Taoist body had the power of annihilation, and he tried to cut into the pink and white petals. However, although many petals were annihilated, more could still escape. Han Fei returned to Bai Ranran's side. "This flower is not a flower. It's more like a kind of soul poison." "Okay." Bai Ranran nodded. After taking a glance at Han Fei, she suddenly picked up the brush and began to draw. This time, she drew a sea of flames. This fire was not true fire, but something similar to soul fire. When the petals touched the sea of fire, they were like ice and fire, and a huge number of petals were burned on the spot. Han Fei was also slightly surprised, because when she fought against Neza, Feng Shen, and Ntufu, Bai Ranran had never used this skill. She can draw other people's Taoist paths in a short time? Is this also a kind of borrowing Taoist paths? Han Fei pondered, and Bai Ranran glanced at Han Fei and said, "This is the talent skill of my associate spirit, but I hope you can keep it a secret." Han Fei nodded slightly. "It seems that the problem lies in the tree. I'm afraid these people have long been controlled by the tree." Bai Ranran asked, "How do you know there is something wrong with the fruit?" Han Fei said, "These people are too calm. And you, at that moment, seemed to be fascinated." Bai Ranran was shocked. Indeed, she didn't think that there was something wrong with the fruit at all. She just felt that Ji Chang was very trustworthy and didn't need to doubt him. Now it seemed that this should also be one of Ji Chang's abilities, which could win the trust of others and catch people off guard. Bai Ranran asked, "Thank you. Why are you not affected?" However, when Bai Ranran saw Han Fei's indifferent eyes, she seemed to understand something. This person was also an emotionless person. It seemed that it was only natural that he could resist the dream invasion technique. Perhaps because Bai Ranran burned the pink petals, Tian Hong quickly got up. It seemed that he had blocked the dream invasion technique. Then, Pan Ying and Li Shunhao woke up one after another. Among them, Han Fei could tell that Pan Ying was really asleep, and Li Shunhao was probably pretending. He couldn't help but be curious. This fatty was quite interesting. The gap between the number 18 farm and Pan Li Tian's number 1 farm was not small. However, the gap between the two people who walked out of the farm seemed to be quite big. Perhaps Pan Ying was stronger than Li Shunhao in terms of combat ability and comprehensive strength, but in terms of temperament, sensitivity, behavior, and many other aspects, he was much weaker than Li Shunhao. Pan Ying exclaimed, "We've been tricked. We've been dragged into a dream." Li Shunhao also exclaimed, "That scared me. I dreamed that a tree wanted to eat my brain." When Li Shunhao shouted that, Han Fei couldn't help but turn his head to look at him. The latter immediately felt a little guilty, but he thought that he should just follow Pan Ying's exclamation. Pan Ying asked, "Where are those B** stars?" Bai Ranran said, "They're all dead." When Bai Ranran finished speaking in a carefree manner, everyone heard a kacha sound. It was the ancient tree that was thousands of feet tall, and it actually broke apart with a loud bang. Then, it was sucked into the origin sea, and Han Fei appeared under the tree at some point in time. After that, he stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the void, scooping out the earth-veined spring water. Before Pan Ying could be surprised, Li Shunhao shouted, "Brother Feng Lu, you're awesome." A strange light flashed in Pan Ying's eyes. She couldn't help but look at Bai Ranran and sense the power left in the air. She was sure that only Bai Ranran and Han Fei were fighting just now. Bai Ranran said, "The people of Primitive City arranged a heaven creation state expert to ambush here 10 years ago. It's not necessarily an ambush, but if it's someone else, it's very likely that we'll be tricked. Destroy this island." The people of Primitive City? A heaven creation state expert. For a moment, even Tian Hong couldn't help but turn his head. They didn't expect that there would be a heaven creation state expert hiding here. Didn't this mean that Bai Ranran and Han Fei had cooperated to kill a heaven creation state expert? Bai Ranran was still alright, as he had once killed a heaven opening realm expert by himself. However, this changed everyone's opinion of Han Fei. When Han Fei returned, he said indifferently, "If I'm not mistaken, the camp of the ascetics has also fallen." At this moment, everyone's face couldn't help but turn ugly. Wasn't that right? If Primitive City had started planning a long time ago, then the nearby forces should have been replaced by them. In this way they could hunt indiscriminately. However, Bai Ranran said, "The First Lord should have noticed this. Perhaps Lord Blazing Heaven has personally taken action to solve the problem." However, Han Fei didn't think so. The three major forces, even if it was for the trial, would usually comb through the nearby wanderer camps. This dream island was so close to the chaotic wasteland. Was there something wrong with the Primitive City's brain to ambush them here? Li Shunhao said, "I think we don't have to worry about these things. Although the people of Primitive City have been exposed, the other wanderer camps might not necessarily be occupied by the Primitive City." Everyone couldn't help but look at Li Shunhao, only to hear the latter chuckle and say, "I mean, what if this wanderer camp is also one of the trials? What if this is a trial specially prepared by the experts of the three major forces?" Panning said, "You mean, the Primitive City hunted us, and maybe our people also hunted the people of Primitive City?" A total of 150 people were selected. Is it interesting to hunt each other like this? Don't let everyone die as soon as they appear. Bai Ranran's heart flashed. No. This kind of trial is more of a warning. It is indeed a complete lesson for us. In this wilderness, no one is worthy of trust except our own people. Chapter 2243. Han Fei guessed that whether it was Bai Ranran, Pan Ning, or Li Shunhao, they all had trump cards that they hadn't used yet. This time, among the 150 people selected, nearly 50 of them were children of the top 10 lords. The children of these big families didn't have much else, but they had a good foundation and a lot of treasures. Therefore, Han Fei also felt that this trial should be just a simple test. If he hadn't been here just now, then Bai Ranran would have been able to solve the battle alone. Even if Bai Ranran wasn't around, Tian Hong would still have a way to deal with him. Perhaps he would just have to suffer some minor injuries. Even if Tian Hong wasn't here, Li Shunhao should also be able to solve the problem. This guy pretended to be a good person, but Han Fei never thought that anyone who could enter the first squad was really useless. As for Pan Ning, it was hard to say. At present, this girl lacked experience and training, but she didn't lack foundation. From her occasional attacks along the way, it could be seen that once she was rich in combat experience, she wouldn't be weak. If what Han Fei had encountered so far was just the first round of the trial, then this trial was too dangerous. In that case, this trial was too dangerous. It seemed that Emochi was right. This trip was indeed not smooth. The Dream Eater tree was uprooted by Han Fei, and the white mist around the Dream Island was also dissipating. After losing the earth vein's spring water and experiencing a great battle, the surrounding waves were roaring, and the earth vein under the island began to collapse. This Dream Island, in the eyes of Han Fei and the others, sank nearly half. At this point, everyone was shocked. Whether this was a trial or not, they were no longer in the chaotic wasteland. Everything in front of them told them that it was equally dangerous outside the wasteland. Bai Ranran took a breath and said, "From now on, don't trust others easily, and don't take this as a trial. 3 months later, Han Fei and the others felt that they had completely walked out of the wilderness. As for the sea map that old man Ji Chang had given them, Bai Ranran and the others specially went to take a look at it in order to verify it, or to deepen the suspicion of the people of the outside world. As expected, they were brought to a land of demonic sunflowers, where there was a demonic sunflower that dominated millions of kilometers of sea. Bai Ranran and the others fought with the demonic sunflower. Since the demonic sunflower was a demonic plant from a remote region, even though the demonic sunflower was defeated in the end, Bai Ranran and the others failed to kill it. At this point, they had thrown away the sea chart that Ji Chang had given them, and Pan Ying had even angrily said that outsiders could not be trusted. On this day, with the sea map obtained by Pan Ying's soul-searching, they were heading for a large settlement named Magic Moonlight City, that was closest to them. Han Fei didn't want to expose his ability to search souls, so Pan Ying led the way. According to Pan Ying, it would take more than 2 months to reach Magic Moonlight City. Because of this, Li Shenhao often sighed with emotion. This wilderness is really big. It's been almost half a year since we left the wasteland, but we haven't even found a single large colony. At this moment, Han Fei suddenly pinched his fingers. Danger! Han Fei scanned the area with his perception, but he didn't find anything special after scanning more than 6 million kilometers. He even confirmed it seriously in a roundabout manner. Han Fei thought to himself that there must be danger on the way ahead, and they would run into it later. 100 seconds later, suddenly, the void was torn open in everyone's sight. It was a giant octopus that stretched for more than 800 kilometers. Li Shenhao exclaimed, "What a huge octopus! How strong is it? We can't just rush over, can we?" Pan Ying nodded. "It's obviously coming for us. How does it know where we are? Why did it set up an ambush here?" Bai Ranran said, "Get ready to fight. Tianhong, get ready to attack. Yi Fenglu, get ready to draw your sword. Li Shenhao, get ready to use your Dao." Han Fei thought to himself that he still didn't know what Li Shenhao's Dao was. Because Yi Fenglu was indifferent, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask. Li Shenhao exclaimed, "Are we really going to fight it?" Bai Ranran nodded. Pan Ying is right. How did it know that we would be on this road? We have to figure this out. As she spoke, Bai Ranran drew her sword and was ready to fight. And after the huge octopus broke open the void, the first thing it did was to spit out a group of as many as 3 heaven-opening realm experts and 13 sea expansion realm experts. These people rushed at the 4 of them, roaring and charging at them. Bai Ranran made a prompt decision and shouted, "Run!" The reason why 3 heaven-opening realm experts appeared at once, and the big octopus itself seemed to be a heaven-opening realm expert, which already showed that this octopus was not an ordinary person. And on their side there were 5 sea expansion realm experts. How could they fight it? And in addition to this octopus, in addition to these people it spat out, on the head of the octopus, another person was standing there, quietly watching all this. This meant that the other party had at least 5 heaven-opening realm experts. 5 heaven-opening realm experts, a dozen sea expansion realm experts, and even more experts. Although Bai Ranran was confident, she was not so confident that she could beat 5 heaven-opening realm experts at once. Besides, the big octopus and the person on the head of the octopus seemed to be stronger. Run separately. At this time, running separately was the best choice, so that these people could be forced to disperse. And once these people dispersed, if there was only one heaven-opening realm expert, then Bai Ranran had nothing to be afraid of. She was even confident that the members of her first squad could at least deal with one heaven-opening realm expert. Even if they couldn't beat them, they could run away. But then, a terrifying scene happened. First of all, when Han Fei and the others ran 1,000,000 miles away, they suddenly found that the void had been blocked, and a large array had burst out in all directions. Bai Ranran summoned the sea brush companion spirit and broke the array in the air, but as soon as she took the brush, The expert who was standing on the head of the big octopus had already blocked in front of her. On the other side, Li Shunhao exclaimed, "Don't chase me. I'm poor. Look at my battlesuit, it's patched." While speaking, Li Shunhao magically opened his battlesuit, and everyone saw a patch inside. Not to mention these people, even Han Fei was dumbfounded. A dignified sea expansion cultivator's battlesuit actually needed to be patched? Would it kill you to reforge it? Would it consume a lot of your resources? On the other side, Pan Ying crushed a jade slip, and Pan Litian's figure appeared in the void. The expression of the man who was sniping by Ranran suddenly changed drastically. "Activate the energy shield. Everyone, retreat." Then, the man disappeared and ran back to the big octopus. After all, they were very close. Hence, they had enough time to return to the big octopus before Pan Litian appeared and attacked. Pan Ying shouted, "Grandpa, we've been attacked by this octopus." Pan Litian frowned slightly in the void. "Sea monster fortress? If you dare to touch the 10,000 scales, I'll find you, uproot you, and kill you from this world." Then, Pan Litian attacked from afar. It seemed like he could pierce through the big octopus with a finger. However, at this moment an energy shield rose. Rumble! The force of Pan Litian's attack blasted a huge hole in the energy shield. The powerhouse forcefully blocked Pan Litian's attack with the mighty force of heaven and earth. He did not know what the energy shield was, but it had managed to block at least 80% of Pan Litian's attack's power. Even so, the man in the lead turned slightly pale after withstanding Pan Litian's attack. It was clear how powerful Pan Litian's attack was. Humph! At this moment, the big octopus continued to vomit. This time, it spat out 22 people. Among them were 3 Heaven Creation stage powerhouses. The rest were Pioneer Sea stage powerhouses. In the blink of an eye, Pan Ying and the rest were all confused. The man in the lead seemed to be afraid that Pan Ying would take out the protective jade slip Pan Litian had given him again. He shouted, "You can continue to use this protective jade slip. However, when you use it, I guarantee I'll be able to block it and kill you on the spot." Pan Ying shouted coldly, "Do you think I'm afraid of you? Do you believe I won't take out the venerable Emperor's jade slip if you kill me?" Han Fei was speechless as he listened from the side. As expected, people from wealthy families were heroic. The venerable Emperor's jade slip was the 10,000 scales Emperor's jade slip. Pan Ying must not have noticed the uniqueness of this battle. First of all, these people did not have any killing intent. Second of all, these people had not shown any killing intent until now. However, Pan Ying had completely exposed his trump card. Fortunately, Bai Ranran noticed something was amiss and stopped Pan Ying immediately. She said, "Why are you panicking?" After saying that, Bai Ranran faced the middle-aged man. "You have so many powerhouses, but you're stopping us juniors. What's the matter?" The middle-aged man smiled faintly. "Looks like this is your first time in the wilderness. You don't even know about the sea monster fortress. However, you're the prodigies among prodigies. This means you're from the chaotic wasteland. Moreover, you're going to participate in the Divine Capital Dynasties competition, right?" Chapter 2244. Even Han Fei was a little surprised that this man knew where they came from and the purpose of their trip. Bai Ranran asked, "Why do you say that?" The middle-aged man glanced around and motioned those who were about to attack to step back. He said, "If you have been in the wilderness for a long time, you must know the existence of the sea monster fortress. And your strength indicates that you are extraordinary. Judging from the protective jade slip just now, that should be a super strong master at the late stage of the star transformation realm. In this wilderness, it is theoretically impossible for such a strong master to appear. Since you have appeared, there is only one answer. You are from the chaotic wasteland." Bai Ranran asked, "So, you allow us to leave?" The middle-aged man nodded slightly, but then said, "You can leave, but you have to pay something. Of course, I am kind enough to explain some basic knowledge of the wilderness to you, so that you don't know anything about it. This is a deal." Their hearts sank slightly. Hearing this middle-aged man's words, Pan Ing secretly took out another jade slip. "What is the sea monster fortress?" The middle-aged man chuckled. "In the entire sea realm, there are 5 divine lands. Among them, the wilderness occupies the largest area. In the wilderness, there are some special places, such as your chaotic wasteland, Ghost Strait, Sea of Gods and Demons, Floating City, Boundless Mining Area, etc. It can be said that all the forces in the sea realm are actually built on the wilderness, and the wilderness is boundless and dangerous. Whether it is independent cultivators or the major forces, they have never stopped exploring it. And in the wilderness, the most common kind of wilderness gathering place, do you know what it is?" How did Han Fei and the others know? Including Bai Ranran, none of them had ever been out of the chaotic wasteland. Even Pan Ing, as a core descendant of the First Lord of the Scavenger City, had never learned any information about the outside world. Perhaps this was the intention of the major forces in the chaotic wasteland, but in any case, they really knew nothing about the outside world. The middle-aged man knew that Han Fei and the others couldn't answer, so he said, "In the wilderness there are only 2 situations: hunting and being hunted. The Sea Monster Fortress is a gathering place for many strong masters, relying on sea beasts, to resist strong enemies, and to hunt conveniently. Its essence is still plunder." Bai Ranran asked, "Does that mean that Senior is determined to rob us?" The middle-aged man smiled and said, "I know you have extraordinary origins, but no matter how extraordinary you are, your battle prowess is just for show. I don't want to offend the experts behind you, but it doesn't mean that you can leave in front of us without paying anything." Therefore, he had to pay the price. "Meanwhile, I won't be stingy in explaining the rules of the wilderness to you all." Han Fei suddenly asked, "How did you find us?" That was what Han Fei had been curious about. Although they could hide in the void, they were moving fast. It would not be easy for the enemy to locate them and approach them quietly. The middle-aged man didn't evade the question. He said, "Perception is the easiest power to be deceived. Perhaps you're too used to the primal chaos wasteland that you don't know that it's a place where the strong prey on the weak. Cultivators can use all sorts of methods to avoid detection. That's all I have to say. As for how to avoid detection, if you are willing to pay a certain amount of resources, I won't be stingy to tell you." Han Fei's heart moved. He didn't want to spend money to buy information. As for how to avoid detection, as long as he was willing, he had many ways to find out. As for whether Bai Ranran and the others were willing to spend money, he didn't know. Bai Ranran asked, "Senior, how many resources do you need?" Bai Ranran needed to weigh the price. Although they were confident that they could escape, the price of escaping was also not low. How could a late-stage star transformation protective jade slip be so easily obtained? For example, the value of Pan Ying's jade slip was indescribably high. If they had to spend a few jade slips of this level just to fight this battle, it would be too much of a loss. The middle-aged man smiled and said, 5 people, 1 million strands of chaotic energy each. This is only one. I heard that the primal chaos wasteland produces energy crystals. 1 million strands of chaotic energy per person. Han Fei's heart moved. From this person's asking price, Han Fei felt that this person actually had a certain understanding of the primal chaos wasteland, but it wasn't deep enough. This meant that he had never been to the primal chaos wasteland. A normal peak stage sea expansion realm cultivator probably couldn't take out 1 million strands of chaotic energy. Only people like Han Fei, who had a shocking amount of chaotic energy, could absorb it from the endless void. As for energy crystals, who could take out 1 million of them casually? This middle-aged man must have seen that Han Fei and the others were talented and powerful, which was why he dared to ask for such an exorbitant price. Ridiculous! Pan Ing shouted in a low voice. Do you know how many resources this is? You dare to ask for it? Do you really think you can do whatever you want with 7 or 8 heaven-opening realm cultivators? With that, Panning held a jade slip in one hand and said, "Believe it or not, I can pierce through you and make you get no resources at all." Ha ha ha, the middle-aged man laughed and said, "Little girl, it depends on the situation. How many do you have for a full-strength attack of this level? I can say very bluntly that I can block 3 more. Maybe you have a 4th, a 5th, or even a 10th. But don't forget one thing. You have just come out of the chaotic wasteland. If you use these resources today, what will you do when you encounter other enemies in the future?" Before Panning scolded him, the middle-aged man continued, "You can block the sea monster fortresses, but what about the mobile fortresses? That's a large wilderness settlement composed of multiple sea monster fortresses. There are dozens of heaven-opening realm cultivators and hundreds of sea expansion realm cultivators. Even the most exaggerated mobile fortresses are guarded by venerable emperors. Do you want to scare them with your jade slips?" At this time, someone sneered and said, "You brats, you won't lose anything if you suffer a loss now. Save the treasures for later use. Why waste them here?" Someone said disdainfully, "Little girl, do you really want to fight to the death? Is this what you want?" Bai Ranran glanced at Pan Ing and Han Fei, and then looked at the middle-aged man. "The 30% of the resources you just mentioned is my limit. Otherwise, let's fight. I promise that none of you will survive." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes slightly. "Little girl, don't be so stubborn. 30% is too little, at least 60%. However," Bai Ranran snorted coldly. "Pan Ing, Li Shenhao." Immediately, 5 or 6 jade slips appeared beside each of them. Bai Ranran sneered. "What will happen to us in the future is a matter for the future. Now, I'm giving you face by giving you the resources. Don't be greedy." Bai Ranran originally wanted to say that she would only give them 20%, but after some consideration, she realized that if she only gave them 20%, the other party was likely to choose to fight first. By then, they might be able to beat them back, but it wouldn't be worth it. Just as the middle-aged man said, they had just left the chaotic wasteland and still had a long way to go. If they used all their trump cards now, what would they use in the future? Therefore, it was meaningless to fight such a battle. Why should they fight? The middle-aged man was silent for a moment, then suddenly said with a smile, "Fine. Young people nowadays are really difficult to deal with. 30% it is." This time, Bai Ranran shouted, "Give it to us." They could indeed give these resources, but they all felt a little aggrieved. Especially Panning, she really wanted to go up and kill all these people. But Han Fei was different. He could understand this kind of robbery. This was like pirate. They made a living by robbing as much as they could. As long as they intimidated you, they could always get some resources. Everyone had their own rules of survival. If possible, not everyone would become a pirate. However, no matter what this middle-aged man did, he had robbed Han Fei of his things. And Han Fei had never been a person who would allow others to rob him of his things. After Han Fei and the others all gave him the resources, the middle-aged man nodded slightly, and those who had surrounded Han Fei and the others all returned to the back of the big octopus. Then the void around them twisted, and they all disappeared. The middle-aged man looked at Han Fei and the others with a smile and said, "I look forward to our next cooperation." After saying that, the giant octopus's body turned transparent. Its tentacles reached into the void, and its huge body drilled into it. In an instant, it disappeared without a trace. Panning asked, "Sister Ranran, what should we do now? If we often encounter these sea monster fortresses along the way, won't we be robbed sooner or later?" Bai Ranran said, "There are loopholes in his words. In this wilderness, there can't be such looting sea monster fortresses everywhere. At least, there will be special places like cities, which can be used for the exchange of materials and for the rest of the wilderness wanderers." This man just deliberately made the wilderness look ferocious. Li Shenhao asked, Then our top priority is to find a large gathering place for wilderness wanderers, right? Ranran nodded. Yes. We are too unfamiliar with the wilderness now. It's not a good idea to go on like this. And Han Fei said indifferently, I think we can go separately. Separately? Pan Ying immediately said, if we go separately and encounter such a sea monster fortress, we will have nowhere to run. Han Fei said indifferently, he didn't answer my question. How did he find us? Pan Ying asked, just by chance. Ranran shook her head. No. With our strength, even if the perception of a heaven-opening state being sweeps over us, our hearts will be stirred. So, first of all, we can rule out the possibility that the other party detected our location with their perception. Li Shunhao suddenly said, is it possible that the creatures in the surrounding sea have their spies? And then they tell them that we have been here in some way? Pan Ying said, how is it possible? How many spies do they have in this vast wilderness? You know, they are always moving. Ranran suddenly said, it's the Sea of Stars. They must have observed us through the Sea of Stars. Han Fei nodded. That's the fundamental reason why they all hide in the Sea of Stars. Chapter 2245. Everybody was shocked by what he said. They were not stupid. Although none of them had opened the sky, they were not far from it. They had all learned something about opening the sky, such as the Sea of Stars. Li Shunhao was surprised. We didn't open the sky, did we? Why were we detected in the Sea of Stars? Pan Ying explained, the origin sea of the experts will appear in the Sea of Stars. Maybe we can't see our own origin sea from the Sea of Stars. However, other people may observe the Sea of Stars to determine the experts nearby and how many there are. That's right, we are too close, the origin sea is extremely close. At this moment, if someone can observe the stars and look for enemies, they will find us gathered together. Hiss, Ranran looked a bit weird. I seem to understand something. Pan Ying asked, understand what? Ranran explained, at first, Lord Li Tian didn't object to us teaming up and leaving. Maybe, at that time, he had already foreseen that we would be targeted by the fortress of sea monsters. Li Shunhao exclaimed, is this also one of the trials? Ranran nodded slightly. Maybe Lord Li Tian is just telling us the cruelty of the wilderness in this way. He left us to face the dangers alone without telling us. Pan Ying opened her mouth, thinking that Pan Litian was her grandfather, and he didn't even tell her that? So, splitting up is the best solution. Li Shunhao asked, then, won't we be doomed if we're caught alone? Boss Ranran, can I go with you? Ranran glanced coldly at Li Shunhao and said, from the moment we left the primal chaos wastelands, our only goal was to obtain a real map of the desolate sea region. Or to find a large camp in the wilderness. So far we haven't obtained anything, and we haven't found anything. Logically speaking, this doesn't make sense. Even if Lord Li Tian wants to set up obstacles for us, he won't keep doing it. I guess we're not the only ones who have encountered the same situation today. What will they choose? Li Shunhao said, they will probably split up and meet in the nearest large camp in the wilderness. Pan Ying's eyes immediately lit up. So, we are actually close to some unknown large-scale camp in the wilderness. In short, the difficulty of the trial can't possibly kill us right from the start. After we've seen the fake wilderness camp, the deception, and the sea beast fortress, we should at least be given some time to breathe. Ranran nodded, that should be the case. Hence, it's very likely that we'll have to split up. Then, he used his own method to find the camp in the wilderness. If nothing unexpected happens, perhaps Lord Blazing Heaven is waiting for us in the camp. They were not stupid. Han Fei merely gave them a hint, and they soon figured out Pan Litian's thoughts. The reason why they were so sure was naturally because among the first batch of people to leave, who didn't have a big shot in their team, any random disciple of a large clan would at least have a few life-saving treasures bestowed by the elders of their clan. As a result, Even if the powerhouses of the sea monster fortress went to look for them one by one, they would only be able to snatch a portion of the resources. They couldn't snatch the majority of the resources, nor did they dare to do so. The 5 of them split up. Han Fei didn't care about it at all. As a heaven-opening state powerhouse, he had to travel with a few pioneer sea state cultivators every day. After Han Fei and the others split up, on the octopus sea monster's head, the man in the middle was observing the stars. Behind him, someone said, "Boss, this energy crystal is good stuff, but don't we have too little of it? It's obvious that those kids are wealthier than the previous group." The middle-aged man shook his head slightly. "They are also much more dangerous than the previous group. Neither of those 2 girls is easy to deal with. She said she could take out an Emperor-level protection jade slip. Do you believe it?" The man behind him shook his head. "No. How can an Emperor-level protection jade slip be something that mortals can get? No matter how high its status is, it won't be easy for it to get an Emperor-level protection jade slip, right?" "Humph. Stupid. From that girl's tone and attitude, you should be able to tell that she is used to living a comfortable life. She looked at us as if we were servants, without the slightest respect. Or rather, none of the 5 of them behaved cautiously when facing us. This meant that the identities of those people were most likely extraordinary. Forget it, let's look for the next group." And behind the man in the middle, another man said, "Boss, do you think there will be people following and protecting these heavenly talents? After all, it's not difficult for a strong master to hide his star sea." The middle-aged man said, "I don't think so. So many people are going to participate in the Divine Capital Dynasty's grand competition of 10,000 years. There will be many difficulties and obstacles on the way. Which family's expert would have nothing better to do than to protect a few sea expansion brats all day long? Besides, we are just a small sea monster fortress. How can we be worthy of the strong master's attention?" While talking, the middle-aged man suddenly smiled. Smart, those boys just now separated. 2 hours later. In the void, a big octopus was wandering. Suddenly, the big octopus made an emergency stop. It stretched out its tentacles, tore the void open, and appeared in the outside world. Then, the middle-aged man appeared on the octopus's head. There were a total of 7 heaven-opening realm masters who came out with him. At this moment, these people all looked solemn. They didn't expect that they would be stopped. To think that someone would actually be able to find them in this vast wilderness. This was simply unimaginable. In front of them was a man wearing a mask. Next to the man, there was a strong master covered in a black robe. The middle-aged man said, "Your Excellency, do you have a grudge against our small sea monster fortress?" Han Fei said in a gloomy voice, "No." The middle-aged man said, "Since there is no grudge, why did you stop us?" Han Fei grinned. "Do I need a reason?" The middle-aged man's heart sank. He knew that they were a small sea monster fortress, but he still dared to rob them. This meant that he was very confident, and in this remote wilderness, why would there be such a strong existence? It could only mean one thing, that those people who came out of the chaotic wasteland must have a strong master behind them. This was beyond the middle-aged man's expectation. The middle-aged man's face changed slightly. "Some juniors were robbed and you can't sit still? Are you going to fight your way out of this vast wilderness? What's the use of sending such seedlings to the Divine Capital Dynasty?" Han Fei smiled wickedly. "You rob your own, I rob mine. The only thing you should be thankful for is that you didn't try to kill them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you calmly here. Now, either give me 100,000 kilometers of resources, or you don't need to exist anymore." The so-called 100,000 kilometers of resources, as the name suggested, naturally referred to resources spanning 100,000 kilometers. The purpose was obviously to fill the origin sea. Since it was to fill the origin sea, there must be earth-veined spring water, ultra-quality spiritual stones, various mineral deposits, chaotic qi, and immortal spiritual qi. Although these resources were not much for the current Han Fei, for ordinary Sea expansion realm experts, this was a huge number. Many experts who had just entered the heaven-opening realm didn't have so many origin seas. Many people might not be able to save so many resources in thousands of years, but Han Fei casually asked for them. How could the middle-aged man agree? Under the middle-aged man, the octopus was furious. Where did this lunatic come from? How dare you King ask for 100,000 kilometers of resources? Han Fei grinned. Can't you afford it, or do you want me to take action? The middle-aged man looked uncertain. On the one hand, he didn't know what to do with Han Fei, and on the other hand, he couldn't give him these resources. This was tens of thousands of kilometers more than all the resources in this sea monster fortress. The middle-aged man slowly closed his eyes and nodded slightly, still thinking about the problem. But only he knew that he was looking at the star sea. However, the closest star to him didn't seem to be bright enough. Except for this heart, he didn't see the existence of a second star. This meant that the black-robed man probably hid his natal star. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the star sea to not show up at all. After a while, the middle-aged man slightly smiled. I was almost fooled by you. Although your natal star is bright, it hasn't turned into a star. And the one next to you should be a puppet, right? Han Fei suddenly smiled. Tsk, your guess is very correct. But, are you going to give it to me or not? The middle-aged man sneered, and with a thought, the 7 heaven-opening state powerhouses plus the other 8 immediately surrounded Han Fei. The middle-aged man shouted, We want resources. I don't know if you are qualified. Han Fei smiled, and he didn't allow the blood-killing puppet to make a move. As for himself, he suddenly rushed out. Han Fei fought against 8 enemies alone, punching out and swinging his soul knife. BM, clang, clang, clang. This battle lasted for nearly half an hour. Even the middle-aged man was a little horrified. He couldn't fight anymore, but they didn't understand why Han Fei could still fight. Wasn't he tired? He hadn't turned into a star yet. Someone was shocked. Boss, he is using us to practice. He hasn't even turned into a star yet. Boss, this kid is too strong, so strong that he's almost inhuman. Boss, this kid's physique is simply invincible. We can't break his defense. Boss, we are forced to fight him. Hurry up and think of a way. The middle-aged man was shocked. He hasn't turned into a star yet, but he's already so strong? When his star bead burst out with power, Han Fei suddenly looked back, and in an instant, many kinds of Taoist auras gathered on his fingertips. Bam! 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 Han Fei was sent flying back more than 30,000 kilometers in an instant. Wherever Han Fei passed, the void was full of cracks, and a line of flames opened the connection between the endless void and reality. For a moment, the people besieging Han Fei were overjoyed. Ha! How dare you rob our sea beast fortress? Humph! You overestimate yourself. You're courting death. You haven't even turned into a star yet and you dare to fight against 8 enemies. I guess you are also a heavenly talent going to participate in the 10,000 years competition, right? Leave behind the resources and we might let you live. Tisk tisk. Just when those people were ecstatic, a lazy voice suddenly floated over from a distance. Interesting. The power bursting out of your star bead is really weak. Are you reluctant to waste the resources in your origin sea? Chapter 2246. How is this possible? The middle-aged man probably guessed that Han Fei wouldn't die, because he was a freak who could fight against 8 heaven-opening state powerhouses. From the very beginning, they knew that anyone who dared to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the heaven-opening state couldn't be weak. But at this moment, the combat power that Han Fei showed subverted their imagination. This made them realize the difference between mortals and heavenly talent. Although the power that this middle-aged man released from his origin sea was only 5%, it was still a terrifyingly astronomical number. Han Fei said, "Comparatively speaking, you're not smart. Although I may ask for more, you should at least bargain with me. Do you think that you can kill me just because you have more people or turn into stars? Who gave you such an unrealistic idea?" In a flash, Han Fei's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye, and the void was twisted. The middle-aged man was horrified. "Oh no, it's faster than light. Retreat, retreat, puff!" Someone didn't have time to react, only feeling that the depths of his divine soul was penetrated. At the moment he exploded, he thought, "I'm a heaven-opening state, I can resurrect, and as long as I resurrect, I'll immediately surrender and pay." However, this person didn't know that his natal mark had been destroyed by Han Fei, and there was no possibility for him to resurrect. Bam! Bam! After killing 3 heaven-opening state powerhouses in a row and killing one of them, the octopus roared and wanted to fight to the death with the demon condensing pearl. Han Fei appeared in front of them again. The middle-aged man was a little surprised that Han Fei didn't continue to attack, but no matter what the reason was, he hurriedly said, "If you want resources, I'll give them to you." Han Fei smiled. "That's right. Harmony breeds wealth. Why do we have to fight and kill?" The middle-aged man was horrified. He had always been a hunter, but when facing a real powerhouse, he had no power to resist at all. This person's strength made him feel unprecedented fear. Is this the heavenly talent participating in the 10,000-year competition? The middle-aged man had never met such a person in his life. "You're already so strong before turning into a star. How strong will you be after turning into a star?" Han Fei didn't intend to kill these people, because these people also spared their lives just now. Whether it was out of fear or other reasons, at least they did it. The reason why he wanted to get it back was that he had been robbed for no reason. He was a dignified Renhuang. He could give away money and be the god of wealth, but he absolutely could not be robbed. That would make him lose face. In the end, the middle-aged man only collected 90,000 kilometers of resources. Of course, these resources were not a lot for Han Fei. The further one advanced in the heaven-opening realm, the more astronomical the amount of resources needed. It was already beyond Han Fei's expectation that this small sea monster fortress could provide him with resources of 110,000 kilometers. At this moment, Han Fei stood on the head of the big octopus and said lightly, "Take out your sea map." The middle-aged man didn't dare to delay, and he immediately took out a jade bamboo strip. "Friend, this sea area map covers 2 large wanderer camps, and it spans half a light-year of the sea. It's the only sea area map I have that I can show you." Han Fei scanned with his perception. On this sea map, there were indeed 2 large wanderer camps, one of which was Han Fei's previous goal, the magic Moonlight City. Among them, it covered 1,009 islands, 117 ordinary wilderness camps, 203 large wanderer ships, 58 sea monster fortresses, and 1 mobile castle. Among them, the wanderer ships, the sea monster fortresses, and the mobile castle didn't have a fixed location. They could be anywhere in this sea area. This distance of a light-year was equivalent to their territory. However, Han Fei still felt that this distance of half a light-year was a bit too much. Even though he had mastered the speed of light, it was only 3 times the speed of light. It would take at least more than 2 months to cross such a sea area. If it were an ordinary sea-opening realm cultivator, even if they traveled at the speed of light, it would take them half a year. But how could an ordinary sea-opening realm cultivator travel so fast? This meant that it might take most people 3 to 5 years to cross such a sea area. And among them, there was a large wanderer camp, which was only about 8 days away from his current position at the speed of light. Han Fei immediately understood. It seemed that this place should be the first battle of this batch of trial participants in the chaotic wasteland. According to the sea map that Han Fei had, there were more than 160 islands and 23 ordinary wanderer camps on the way from the chaotic wasteland to that wanderer camp. Thinking about it, there were many places like Fantasy Island in this sea region. Han Fei couldn't help but think that perhaps the crisis Mo Chi mentioned was just the ruthless suppression of these guys in the chaotic wasteland by the outside world. Han Fei estimated that although all the people who came out this time were heavenly talent, but such a short distance could probably eliminate at least 1/5 of the people. Of course, behind this kind of elimination was rapid growth. Only when they were in a life-and-death situation could they grow so rapidly. It could be seen that the 150 people selected by the Scavenger City were not the real participants in the 10,000-year competition. Han Fei estimated that it would be not bad if only half of them could really make it to the Divine Capital Dynasty. Han Fei even suspected that it would be not bad if only 1/3 of them could stay. Walking down such a long sea area, how many difficulties and dangers could they really create some heaven-opening realm powerhouses? Unfortunately, such a trial was also of little significance to Han Fei. The only advantage was that Han Fei could find some people to practice with and sharpen himself. Since the wilderness was so dangerous, there must be a lot of battles. Maybe he could make it before the 10,000-year competition and reach a complete balance between his body and soul. Although he couldn't reach the extreme, he wanted to understand the power behind the way of balance. Han Fei asked, "Since you already know that I'm going to the Divine East Sea to participate in the 10,000-year competition, then do you know how far it is from here to the Divine Capital Dynasty?" The middle-aged man shook his head with a wry smile. "If you walk in a straight line, about 8 light years. Unfortunately, I've only been there once. This road is too dangerous. I was captured by the Sea Beast Fortress, detained by the mobile castle, and fought in various camps in the wilderness. Luckily, I didn't die. That's how I built this small Sea Beast Fortress." Haha, Han Fei was dumbfounded. How King big was the Sea Realm? Is it really that far to the Divine Capital Dynasty? Han Fei wondered how the people who came with him would react if they knew that the Divine Capital Dynasty was so far away. For the first time, Han Fei felt that 50 years was very short. If he was not careful, he might not make it in time. As for the experiences that the middle-aged man talked about, Han Fei didn't care. There were too many dangers and fortuitous encounters in life. As the saying went, the weather was unpredictable. He also wanted to see what the so-called moving castle was like. Even this sea monster fortress has a celestial transformation realm powerhouse. That mobile castle must be guarded by at least a powerhouse at the edge of the Tao-proving realm. Maybe there might even be a venerable emperor guarding it, which couldn't be underestimated. Han Fei had a lot of questions, so he grabbed the middle-aged man and planned to ask him all at once. Han Fei said, "Since you are living in the origin sea of this octopus, aren't you afraid that this octopus will suppress and obliterate you with the power of the origin sea? At that time, you will all be great tonics for him." This time, the octopus said, "I am a companion spirit." Han Fei couldn't help but look at the middle-aged man. This octopus turned out to be this man's companion spirit? Then this person was stronger than he thought. If this middle-aged man had fought desperately with him just now, he might have been able to fight with him for a while. The middle-aged man said, "Generally speaking, only one's companion spirit is the most trustworthy. And others, as long as they trust me or sign a resident oath with me, they can live in my Sea Beast Fortress. From then on, we will live and develop together as one." Han Fei was surprised. Is this possible? The weak usually attach themselves to the strong. Didn't this mean that there were actually many people in this big octopus? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "How many people are there in your settlement?" The middle-aged man could only respond, "About 80,000 people, but not many of them are above the Pioneer Sea realm. However, there aren't many of them above sea expansion. Each time they go out to fight, they can only send out experts. That way they can display their strength." Han Fei had a rough idea. No wonder it was called a Sea Beast Fortress. It turned out that there were more than 80,000 people living in this octopus. It was no wonder that the middle-aged man did not dare to accept the challenge. If things went wrong, he would not be the only one to die. But this was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. If he killed a pioneer sea realm cultivator, the strength of this middle-aged man's sea beast fortress would be greatly reduced. It couldn't be helped. Why didn't you listen to me just now? Wouldn't it be better if you paid earlier? Han Fei said, You can go. Just continue hunting the way you should be hunting. Not everyone can find your location like I can, and not everyone can fight 10 people at once. Today, as long as you dare, I will rob you soon. This is a trial, and the big shots won't care. The big octopus and the middle-aged man had the same idea. They bid farewell to Han Fei respectfully and then quickly fled. It wasn't until they ran far away that they felt horrified. They felt that it was that person's mercy that they could survive this time. The big octopus said, Maybe it's the first time this person has left the chaotic wasteland and doesn't know how dangerous the wilderness is. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would be dead. And the middle-aged man also nodded and said, He's too strong. He must be a peerless master cultivated by a super force in the chaotic wasteland. God knows how this kind of person found us. Letting the big octopus go, Han Fei put the resources back in the Origin Sea, but he didn't choose to hurry on his way, but cultivated in the nearby Origin Sea. For a normal person, it would take at least a month or even 2 months before they could sense the nearest large wilderness camp. In these 2 months, he might as well cultivate in the Origin Sea.